Chapter 1693. Guanxilin glanced at him and said, "You seem to be very confident in her." That's true. Master has faced so many dangers and has always turned misfortune into fortune. It's just entering the city. What could possibly happen? Moreover, I believe that even if something were to happen, Master would have a way to deal with it. If you go with her, you might not be helping her, but you might even be a hindrance. Hearing this, Guanxilin did not say anything else and just stood there quietly, until he saw Fengjiu go back to her room and change into a shabby beggar's outfit and walk out along a small path. He could not help but sigh and did not follow her. That's right. Even Du Fan could see through her and trust her. How could he not trust her? With her strength, who could possibly be her opponent in this place? Even if there was danger, it would definitely not be that dangerous. Fengjiu was wearing a shabby beggar's outfit and a pair of broken shoes that exposed 2 toes. She walked leisurely towards the city. Wearing this outfit and smearing her face with dust, she looked ordinary and inconspicuous. Whether it was on a mountain path or after entering the city, she only attracted the disdainful gazes of others. She did not wander around, but walked into the largest elixir store in the city. She took out a list and placed it in front of the shopkeeper. "Shopkeeper, I've collected all the herbs on this list, and I'll give it to." Before she could finish, the shopkeeper raised his hand and slapped her away. "Where did this little beggar come from? Get out of here. Don't block our business. Quick, get out." The shopkeeper looked at the beggar's shabby clothes and skinny body. From the looks of it, she probably did not have anything valuable on her. He immediately waved his hand and began to chase her away. "Hey, don't chase me away. I'm here to buy things. Don't worry, I have money." She dodged as she smiled and handed the list to the shopkeeper. "Give me all the herbs on this list. You won't be short of benefits." The shopkeeper looked at him suspiciously. He took the list and looked at it. Immediately, he became angry and scolded. "Little bastard, you dare to say that you're not here to fool me? How many herbs did you say were on this list? A cart? A truckload of everything? You bastard, don't interfere with my business. Get lost. If you don't scram, I'll get someone to chase you out." Seeing this, Fengjiu had no choice but to put away the list. You don't want to do business even when there's a chance. You're really a stubborn old man. She shook her head and walked out. She started with some of the smaller medicine shops and collected the medicine she needed. However, there were not many things in those smaller pharmacies, and some of the main ingredients were only enough for a dozen people. Seeing this, she set her sights on the underground black market in the city. "Looks like I have no choice but to make a trip to the black market." She still needed to cultivate in seclusion, so it was impossible for her to waste too much time on collecting spiritual herbs. The fastest way was to find the manager of this black market and let him do it. At the entrance of the black market, she handed over the black token. "I want to see your manager." The guard glanced at the black token, took it, and sent it inside. However, not long after, several people came out. "Our master wants you to leave immediately. Otherwise, don't blame us for being impolite." Hearing this, Fengjiu raised her eyebrows, and her eyes moved slightly. "What do you mean? Where's my black token?" Chapter 1694. Our manager said to take back that black token. "If you know what's good for you, leave quickly. Otherwise, don't blame us for being impolite." The black market guard didn't know who this little beggar was. He was only following the orders of the higher-ups. Those who could hold their black token were usually big shots with reputations. This little beggar in front of them didn't know where he got his black token, so it was normal for the manager to take it back. Hearing that, Fengjiu's lips curled up, revealing a smile that wasn't smile. "Your manager asked you to take it back? You've got guts." It seemed like she was being bullied by dogs when she was down. Some people in the black market must have gotten wind of the news about the Phoenix dynasty, so they were tempted. As for the black market in the 8 great empires, she believed that after working together for so long, the owner of the black market wouldn't do such a despicable thing at this time. It should be the people below who were deceiving their superiors and wanted to take away her black token. However, was her black token so easy to take away? Since he wanted it, then she would give it to him. She wanted to see if it was good or bad for the manager to have her black token. Thus, she glanced at the black market's entrance, revealing an indescribable smile. Then, she turned and left, disappearing into the street. However, after walking for a distance, her eyes flickered and a cold glint flashed across her eyes. It seemed like the manager of the black market had some ability. He actually dared to follow her? Good, very good. She wanted to see what they wanted to do. She turned into a deserted alley. Not long later, she saw several men in black chasing after her, looking for her. She smiled and walked out from the corner. Looking for me? She leaned against the corner of the wall, crossing her arms as she looked at those men in black. Those men in black saw that the little beggar suddenly walked out and were a little surprised. Just now, they clearly felt that there was no aura here. Then where did this little beggar come from? Or was he hiding his aura all along? To be able to hide his aura so well, who exactly was this little beggar? Why did the higher-ups let them take his life? Kill him, one of them shouted, drawing his sword and charging forward. The people behind him also attacked instantly, rushing forward with a whoosh. However, at this moment, the expressions of those who rushed forward changed, and they froze on the spot. They only felt their vision turn black, and their bodies fell down powerlessly. Bang! Feng Jiao took out a fruit from somewhere and started chewing it. She looked at the people on the ground and snorted coldly. She walked forward and kicked their bodies. She hooked their chinquan bags with the tip of her foot and turned to walk out of the alley. When Feng Nine appeared in front of the gate of the black market again, he had changed his clothes, and his face was slightly modified. His original appearance could no longer be seen. He was not handsome, but under the contrast of the white clothes, he looked graceful and elegant, like a noble young master. She held a folding fan in her hand and opened it with a whoosh. With one hand behind her back and the other gently fanning herself, she walked leisurely into the black market. The people in the black market hurriedly greeted her and led her inside. Chapter 1695. Young Master, you look unfamiliar. Is this your first time here? The manager asked. Feng Jiao glanced at him. You are... Oh, I forgot to introduce myself. My surname is Sun, and I'm the manager of the black market. Young Master, you can call me Manager Sunday. He smiled and sized up the young master in white in front of him. So it's Manager Sunday. Feng Jiao glanced at him with a half-smile. I'm not from here. I heard that the black market has things that the outside world doesn't have. Even elixirs can be collected in large quantities in a day. Therefore, I'd like to discuss business with Manager Sunday. Hearing this, Manager Sun's eyes flashed. Oh, young master, you're a medicine merchant? Feng Jiao's lips curled. Why? Do you think the black market is picky when doing business? How could that be? Young master, this way please. Manager Sun smiled and gestured for him to enter. Under Manager Sun's lead, Feng Jiao entered. After sitting down, she took out a list. These are the elixirs I want. Manager Sun, see if you can help me gather them by tomorrow. She paused and smiled. As long as the elixirs are gathered, Manager Sun will naturally receive all the benefits. Hearing this, Manager Sun smiled and took a look. He was slightly surprised. You want so much? And they're not ordinary elixirs. Young master, the cost of these elixirs will be a huge sum of money. What he meant was, can you take out so much money? Manager Sun, don't worry. I can still afford this amount of money. As she spoke, she turned her hand and took out a crystal. This is a supreme grade crystal. Consider it a small reward from Manager Sunday. Once the matter is settled, the rest is more important. Looking at the dazzling supreme grade crystal, Manager Sun's heart skipped a beat. He concluded that this person must be the son of an aristocratic family. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to have such a top-grade crystal stone. It should be known that the price of such a top-grade crystal stone was not cheap, but he actually gave it to him as a gift. It was obvious that his family was rich. All right, young master doesn't need to worry. I will definitely be able to prepare all the spirit herbs tonight and wait for young master to collect them tomorrow. However, he smiled and said, young master should also prepare some funds when you return. After all, there are so many spirit herbs. If we can't pay for them, we won't be able to hand them over to young master. I know. Manager's son, don't worry. She flicked her robe and stood up. Then I'll have to trouble manager's son to help me settle this as soon as possible. Tomorrow morning, I'll bring the money for the medicine over. All right, leave it to me. Manager's son couldn't help but have an excited smile on his face when he thought about the big business deal he had just made. He was prepared to personally send the white-clothed man out, but unexpectedly, the white-clothed man stopped when he reached the battle arena. Young master, could it be that you're also interested in this challenge? Manager's son asked with a smile. He also stopped and looked at the two people fighting on the stage. It's quite fun. She rubbed her fists and said to manager's son, Manager's son, you don't have to follow me. I want to go down and play a few rounds. You can go to your own thing. I see. All right, then I'll get someone to entertain you. Manager's son waved his hand and called another person over. After giving a few instructions, he bid farewell to Fengjiu and turned to do other things. Chapter 1696. She walked forward and registered outside the arena. Then, she placed her money and bet on herself to win. Then, she entered the arena and started sparring with the people inside. On the other side, manager's son, who had instructed people to prepare the medicinal herbs, was just finishing his instructions when a guard came over and reported in a low voice, Manager, that young man in white has already won 10 rounds in a row and won a huge sum of money. Other than that, no one else dares to enter the arena. Won 10 rounds in a row? Isn't that person a golden core cultivator? Why is no one a match for him? Manager's son frowned slightly. He sized up that young man in white and saw that he was at the peak of the golden core realm at such a young age. That was why he thought that he should be a disciple of a large family clan. Although he was young, his talent was outstanding. However, in the arena, how could no one be a match for him at the peak of the golden core realm? That young man in white's movement technique is strange. He didn't hit his subordinates too hard. However, every one of them was knocked out in less than 3 moves. Hearing this, manager's son turned and walked towards the arena, intending to take a look himself. However, before he reached the arena, he saw the white-clothed young man walk out of the arena with a flick of his robe. He then followed an old man to the back. He stopped in his tracks and stared at the old man with a frown. Isn't that elder he? Why is he at the front? I don't know. We didn't inform him, the guard beside him said. The black market was divided into 2 factions. One belonged to the president, and the other belonged to the 2 elders who guarded the black market. The manager naturally obeyed the president's orders, and so did they. However, some of them obeyed the 2 elders' orders. Both sides had their own forces behind them, and they couldn't stand the actions of the other party. Hence, there was no lack of secret fighting. They wanted to push the 2 elders away, and the 2 elders wanted to pull the president down. At this moment, seeing that one of the 2 elders had actually appeared in front of them, they were naturally puzzled. Behind them, the old man who brought Fengjiu to a guest room ordered someone to guard the door. He then gestured to Fengjiu, Young Master Feng, please take a seat. Hearing this, Fengjiu raised her eyebrows and looked at the elder. How did you know it was me? She walked forward and sat down on the right seat. The old man smiled and sat down in the main seat on the left. He personally poured a cup of tea for her and said, That son guy has eyes but can't see. Naturally, he can't recognize young Master Feng. Although this old man has never seen young Master Feng before, as an elder of the black market branch, I have inquired about young Master Feng who holds a first-class black token. Originally, I wasn't sure, but after seeing young Master Feng fight with someone in the arena, I knew it was young Master Feng. Oh, you can recognize me just by exchanging blows with others? Hearing this, the old man smiled and said, Young Master Feng might not know, but a few years ago, I saw young Master Feng exchanging blows with someone. I remember young Master Feng's strange moves. Elder, he has good eyesight. She was still thinking that with her disguise, it was impossible to see her original appearance. How could someone recognize her? I don't dare. He smiled and raised his cup of tea. Young Master Feng, please, please. She also raised her cup and took a sip. Chapter 1697. As an elder of the black market, Even if it was just a branch elder, he knew how powerful the ghost doctor's name was these few years. Even an elder like him didn't have as many rich experiences and fortuitous encounters as she did. He heard that she even went to the 8 great empires, but he didn't expect that he would come back here again and see her here. Seeing her here, he could more or less guess that the recent rumor of the Phoenix Empire being burned down was related to her. If it wasn't her idea, then it was her plan to beat them at their own game to get rid of the enemy. Only to destroy a dynasty just like that. This kind of breadth of mind, this kind of courage, really made many people feel ashamed of their inferiority. Looking at the people guarding outside, Fengjiu's eyes moved slightly, asking, "Looks like the black market isn't too peaceful here. Since Elder, he doesn't know that I'm here, then you shouldn't know that my black order was detained by your manager's son, right?" "What?" Elder, he was shocked and stood up in disbelief. That grandson actually dared to detain young Master Feng's black order? He must have eaten a leopard's guts. I originally planned to buy some herd from the black market, but the moment I handed over my black order, it was detained by him, and he even sent people to kill me. Hee. I also think that his guts aren't small. She played with the teacup in her hand, slowly speaking. "Young Master Feng, I'm really sorry. I believe you know quite a bit about this internal strife, but don't worry, I'll report this matter, and I'll definitely let the higher-ups take care of them. As long as this matter was reported, then the black market's president would have to change. The heavens were really helping him. This surnamed son really didn't have eyes, actually having ideas about the ghost doctor. Daring to have ideas about the ghost doctor, he wanted to see how they would die in the end." Fengjiu only smiled, but didn't say a word. Seeing this, Elder, he paused, then asked, "Then I wonder what herbs young Master Feng wants? I can get people to prepare them for young Master." "No need. I've already asked Manager's son to do it. Let him handle this matter." She turned the teacup in her hand and said, "But there's something I need your help with. Please instruct me, young Master Feng." Elder, he hurriedly said. Her eyes were gloomy as she said, "Help me send a letter to the 8 great empires and have them pass it to your masters." "All right." Oldie responded and went inside to take out a brush, ink, paper, and inkstone. Then he retreated a little and sat down. Fengjiu wrote a letter, asking the black market to help investigate this force. After working together for so long, although she had never met the owner of the black market, she believed that the owner of the black market would help her. Moreover, if she and Xinyuan Mose could not find out about the power, then perhaps only the master of the black market could find out. Receiving the letter from Fengjiu, he said, "Young Master Feng, don't worry. I will have someone send this letter as soon as possible. It will definitely reach them. Okay, help me settle my winnings. I'm leaving." She gestured. "Sure. Young Master Feng, please take a seat." He walked out and asked someone to calculate the amount of money she had earned from winning 10 rounds in a row and hand it over to her. Then he personally saw her out. At this moment, he saw Manager's son waiting outside. Chapter 1698. What do you mean by receiving your guests? Oldie snorted. The guests here are all from the black market. I happened to be free and saw that this young master's skills were extraordinary, so I chatted with him for a while and drank a cup of tea with him. Why? Do I need your permission? Haha, I wouldn't dare. You are the mayor of the black market. I'm just a small manager. How would I dare to ask? He said in a strange tone, then looked at Fengjiu, who was standing leisurely with his hands behind his back. He said, "Young master, I heard that you won 10 rounds in a row. I came especially to congratulate you. Did they pay for your winnings?" "They already paid." As Fengjiu said, he looked at Manager's son and said, "Manager's son, arrange the things I want as soon as possible. I hope that tomorrow's trip will not be in vain." No, I will prepare it for you tonight." As he spoke, he personally saw Fengjiu out. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw that he did not follow. So he asked, "Young master, we have already made such a big deal, but we don't even know your surname." This seems. Fengjiu, who had already walked to the entrance of the black market, stopped and glanced at him with a faint smile. He said meaningfully, "Manager's son, why are you in such a hurry? When we meet again, you will definitely know who I am." Hearing this, Manager's son was startled for a moment. When he wanted to ask again, he saw that the white-clothed young man had already walked into the crowd. Seeing this, he gave a meaningful glance to the guards behind him, indicating for them to follow and keep an eye on the white-clothed young man. After leaving the black market, Fengjiu did not go back. Instead, he strolled around the city for a while, then found a restaurant and ordered a table of food and wine to eat. His leisurely expression was like that of a noble young master going out to play, as if he did not know that someone was watching him in the dark. On this day, she wandered around. Sometimes she would sit in a restaurant to eat meat and drink wine. Sometimes she would sit in a tea house to sip tea. Sometimes she would sit in a street stall to eat snacks. The day passed by as she wandered around. When night fell, she checked into an inn. After a comfortable bath, she put on her underwear and rested on the bed for a while. When it was late at night, she opened her eyes and jumped out of the bed. She took out a dazzling red robe from the space and put it on. She opened the window and jumped out of the window. Just as she jumped out of the window, the two people in charge of watching her, one in front and one behind. The person behind only felt a gust of cold wind, as if his neck was pricked by a needle and his whole body fell down. When the person in front heard the commotion, he rushed to the back to take a look, only to see that person collapsed in the corner of the wall. He immediately went forward, but before he could do anything, he also collapsed. "You dare to follow me with this kind of skill?" She coldly snorted. Her red robe fluttered, and she stepped on the wind and headed towards the black market. She had come in during the day, so she was very familiar with the route. After she snuck in, she headed straight for the black market's medicine pavilion. One day's time was enough for Manager's son to move the medicinal ingredients. When she saw the person guarding the medicine pavilion, her eyes moved slightly. Feeling the movement of the wind, she directly grabbed a handful of medicinal powder and opened her hand, letting the medicinal powder drift in the air with the night wind. In the backyard of the black market, he was talking to another elder about seeing the ghost Dr. Fengjiu today. Chapter 1699. What do you think? Elder, he asked with a smile. He was also very curious. The old man glanced at Elder He and said, "Even if he doesn't die, he'll still lose a layer of skin." When he said this, the two looked at each other and smiled. Provoking the ghost doctor, they didn't need to make a move. They would have to bear the consequences. On the other side, Fengjiu, who had entered the medicine pavilion after taking down the guards, put all the medicine she needed into her space. She didn't take much from the others. After all, she only wanted to teach the person in charge of the black market a lesson. She didn't want to become enemies with the owner of the black market. After leaving the medicine pavilion, she left in a flash and went to the back to grab a guard. "Where is your manager's courtyard?" That guard was shocked. He only felt his throat being choked and his whole body being lifted up. He had no choice but to stand on his tiptoes to relieve the pressure on his neck. His face was filled with shock and horror. What kind of place was the black market? Someone actually dared to break in at night? Who the hell is this guy? Wasn't he afraid of the black market's revenge? "Speak." Fengjiu's voice deepened, and the hand holding the guard's throat tightened a bit. That person's face flushed red and his heartbeat quickened. In an instant, he felt the aura of death approaching. Instinctively, he could only point ahead. Up ahead, there's a courtyard on the right. As soon as he finished speaking, the back of his neck was hit hard, and his whole body fell down. Fengjiu dragged him to a corner and rushed forward. She didn't know if the people of the black market were overconfident or if they felt that no one would dare to enter the black market at night. Other than the guards in front, it could be said that there wasn't a single guard in the courtyard outside. Of course, to be able to live in this courtyard, which one of them wasn't at the peak of the Golden Core stage. Even that manager's son was at the peak of the Golden Core stage, not to mention those two elders. She restrained her aura and flashed into the room through the open window. She didn't walk to the bedside, but sat down on a chair not far from the bed. Her finger casually tapped on the armrest. Knock, 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 knocked out in the quiet night. A few soft knocks were exceptionally clear. Almost at the same time, Manager's son woke up abruptly. As he jumped up, he lifted the bed curtains and shouted, "Who is it?" However, when he borrowed the night light that shone into the room and saw the handsome and devilish young man in red sitting on the chair, he couldn't help but be shocked. Ghost, ghost doctor. Hee, I thought you would say it's a ghost. She chuckled as she looked at the person whose face had turned pale from fright. However, when Manager's son heard this voice, he was even more shocked. He pointed at Fungio in disbelief. You are the white-robed young master from today? What are you doing here? You just found out? She raised her eyebrows and curled her lips into a devilish smile. Didn't I tell you before? When you see me again, you'll know who I am. Hearing this, Manager's son retreated in fear and opened his mouth to call for help. However, just as he opened his mouth and before he could make a sound, he felt a strong pressure coming towards him, causing the blood in his body to run amok. A mouthful of blood violently spat out from his throat. Pooh! Chapter 1700. Do you think I'm that easy to deal with? Fungio played with her hair, her voice languid as she said, After provoking me, you should have thought of the consequences. Isn't that right, Manager's son? She stood up, flicked her robes, and walked towards the bed step by step. Looking at the person sitting by the bed, she suddenly reached out and pinched his chin. Tell me, how should I repay you? Manager's son's eyes widened as he stared at her in horror. He wanted to shake his head, but he couldn't. It was as if his body had been nailed to the ground, unable to move. He knew that this was the pressure of a strong cultivator that had directly stunned him. At this moment, he was filled with regret. If he had known that the ghost doctor was so difficult to deal with, if he had known that she was so terrifying, he definitely wouldn't have gone against her. I have quite a few strange pills on hand. How about I reward you with one? She revealed an evil smile, and with a flip of her other hand, a dark green pill appeared in the palm of her hand. Looking at the strange dark green pill, cold sweat dripped from Manager's son's forehead. His body stiffened and he wanted to retreat, but his chin was pinched open. Eat it. No need to be polite. Take this pill as a gift for me. She stuffed the pill into his mouth and said, Oh, I forgot to tell you. I've already stored away all the medicine in the medicine collection pavilion. You don't have to wait for me to collect the medicine tomorrow. It'll save you the trouble. She released his chin and retreated a few steps. Her beautiful eyes narrowed, and she smiled wickedly. Don't worry, I won't kill you. I'll leave you for the higher-ups to deal with. As for the effects of this pill, I think you'll find out very soon. As soon as she finished speaking, the red figure flashed, and she stepped through the door and left. Not long after, she disappeared into the night. Once she left, the pressure in the entire room also dissipated, and the force that was suppressing him also disappeared without a trace. However, when he thought of the pill he had eaten, his face couldn't help but turn pale. His entire body went limp on the bed as he shouted outside. Someone come. Someone come quickly. However, there was no one guarding outside the courtyard, and the people nearby had already been taken down by Fungio. For a moment, no one heard anything, about the time it took for an incense stick to burn. The guard who fell in the medicine pavilion was discovered by the patrolling guards. In a moment, the lights were lit, and everyone quickly went to inform their superiors. Some ran to inform the two elders, while others ran to inform Manager Sunday. Not good. Not good, elder. Something has happened. A guard hurriedly slammed on the door and shouted. In the room, the two men who were chatting while playing chess paused and looked at each other. One of them asked what happened. Someone snuck into the medicine pavilion and stole most of the spirit medicines inside. The guard outside said. The door opened and a person walked out. Oh, how could it be stolen? Isn't there a guardian guarding that place all day long? Yes, but the medicine that was brought in today is all gone. As for how much we lost, we have already sent someone to check. Also, someone has already gone to inform Manager Sunday, the guard reported. Chapter 1701. The guard lowered his head. The guards have all fainted. Hearing this, the two elders immediately walked out. When they arrived at the pavilion of medicine, they saw that most of the medicine was still there. Only the batch of medicine that had just been brought in today was missing. Seeing this, the two elders already knew who did it. At this moment, a guard hurriedly reported, "Not good, elder. Manager's son, manager's son." The two elders didn't ask any questions. Instead, they walked straight to manager's son's courtyard. As soon as they entered the courtyard, they heard a terrified scream coming from inside. They couldn't help but stop in their tracks. After hesitating for a while, they walked in. "No, no. Quick, give me a doctor. Get a doctor." Manager son's terrified voice came from inside the room. No one knew what he was saying. They only knew that he was frantically asking someone to get a doctor. As soon as they entered the room, they could smell the thick stench of blood. The two elders frowned. "What's going on? What happened to manager's son?" A guard stepped forward and said, "Elder, manager's son is hiding on the bed and doesn't dare to let us near him. He won't even let us see. We don't know what happened to him. However, the smell of blood in the room is very strong. I'm afraid." Hearing this, the two elders stepped forward and pulled open the bed curtain. When they saw the person who was curled up in the corner of the bed, they couldn't help but jump in fright. Their faces were full of horror. They immediately let go of the bed curtain and took 3 steps back. The two elders' hearts were like a tidal wave, stirring up thousands of waves. When they saw the scene, they felt a chill run down their spine. They couldn't believe it. During the day, he was still fine. At this moment, he didn't even look like a human or a ghost. The moment the bed curtain was pulled open, the two elders saw manager's son curled up in the corner of the bed. He was wearing a white inner robe, but his entire body was drenched in blood. It was as if his skin and flesh were falling off. Layer by layer, it was a ghastly sight. "The doctor is here. The doctor is here." The guard brought the doctor in. Following him were the alchemists from the black market. When they heard that something had happened, they came over to take a look, opened the bed curtain, and asked manager's son to come out. The doctor said as he smelled the thick stench of blood. He then opened the doors and windows to disperse the smell. "Doctor, doctor, you have to save me. You have to save me." Manager's son rushed out and grabbed the old man in front. "Hurry up and take a look at me. What's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? Will I die? Will he die?" When they saw manager's son rushing out from the bed, other than the two elders who had seen his condition earlier, everyone else was shocked and involuntarily retreated. Even the doctor paled in fright when he was grabbed by manager's son's bloody hand. He hurriedly shouted, You let go of my hand and sit down first. I'll take a look at you. You have to save me. You have to save me. If you don't save me, I will definitely die. I will definitely suffer a fate worse than death." He murmured. It was unknown if he was scared silly or what, but his flesh was peeling off and his blood dyed his inner clothes red. However, it was as if he didn't feel anything. His expression was somewhat crazy. When the alchemist and the two black market doctors saw this scene, they could not help but shudder. They looked at him in shock and asked, How? How did this happen?" Chapter 17:02. I know I was wrong. I really know I was wrong. Woo. I don't dare anymore. I really don't dare anymore. Amidst manager's son's cries, the old man finished his diagnosis, but shook his head with a serious expression. "This old man is powerless. Please find someone more qualified." With that, he turned and walked out. Seeing this, he instructed, "Let manager's son take care of him." Then he left with everyone, leaving behind manager's son, who was still muttering to himself. Outside, the others were a little shocked by this scene, and they couldn't help but surround the two elders and ask, "Elders, do you know what happened to manager's son? Why did he suddenly become like this? I heard that there were people who came to the medicine pavilion to steal medicinal ingredients tonight." "Humph." Oldie snorted coldly and said, "He brought this upon himself." Hearing this, everyone couldn't help but look at each other, then cupped their hands and bowed to Oldie. Would Oldie please explain? Could it be that he had offended some incredible person? Otherwise, why would a perfectly fine person suddenly become like this? Seeing that everyone here was from the black market, Oldie said, "This person's surnamed son secretly detained the ghost doctor's black order and even ordered people to kill the ghost doctor." Humph. What a dog. He didn't even look at who the ghost doctor was, daring to take advantage of the situation to hit a person who was down. If the ghost doctor didn't take care of him, who would she take care of? Hearing this, Everyone was shocked and couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. The ghost doctor? He actually detained the ghost doctor's black order? Who was the ghost Dr. Fungio? Was she someone they could offend? Someone they could provoke? Even if her current situation was different from before, she was definitely not someone they could provoke. This manager's son had really eaten a bear's heart and leopard's guts. Thinking of this, they couldn't help but ask, "Then what do we do now?" "What do you mean, what do we do?" "Get someone to watch over son, then report this matter." "Old," he said, flicking his sleeves and leaving with the other elder. Everyone stayed for a while, then left as well. It was better for them not to get involved in this matter. The next evening, Feng Jiu returned to the valley. Shangguan Wanrong and the others, who had been waiting for her, were relieved to see her return safely. "Xiaojiu, there's porridge in the kitchen that's still warm. Eat some first." Shangguan Wanrong looked her up and down and asked, "Are you hurt?" "No, it went very smoothly. The medicinal herbs this time are enough for me to refine a lot of medicinal pills." Of course, she didn't take back the black order. However, it didn't matter if she didn't get the black token back. One day, it would return to her. Hearing this, Shangguan Wanrong revealed a shallow smile. "It's good that you're not injured. Eat something and rest well for a while. Your father said yesterday that he was a little worried about you going out alone." "Where's father?" Feng Jiu asked. "He went to watch the Phoenix Guards train with Lin." Feng Jiu nodded. She followed her mother to the kitchen and sat down at a table outside. After eating, she went back to her room to take a bath and rest. At night, she chatted with her parents for a while and gave them some instructions. Then, she prepared to refine medicinal pills. In the following days, she helped the Phoenix Guards refine large amounts of medicinal pills. Then, she entered the space to cultivate. Chapter 17:03. Days passed, and the time in the space was 3 times longer than outside. During this period, Feng Jiu had been cultivating in the space, and her few contracted beasts were also cultivating in the space. Apart from increasing her own strength, she also hoped to increase the strength of her contracted beasts. This way, they could be of help even when fighting against a fairy realm expert. The Fire Phoenix's strength was needless to say, but Lao Bai, Tun Yun, and the little black bear's strength were also increased by another level, helping them to break through together. Therefore, apart from the Phoenix Guards who had elixirs to help them, the spiritual beasts in the space also had elixirs to help with their cultivation. On this day, while sitting cross-legged in the space, she felt that she was about to break through the peak of the nascent soul stage and enter the fairy realm. She opened her eyes and looked up at the sky and the space. This space was a world of its own, and there was only day and night. She had only been cultivating and advancing in this space, but she had never experienced the heavenly thunder tempering when she broke through. She didn't know if she could go through the tribulation here. If she could go through the tribulation in this space, then no matter how big the commotion of her advancement was, it wouldn't attract anyone's attention. However, could it be done here? In the past, the green lotus in her belly would naturally devour the surrounding vitality when she broke through. However, after such a long period of cultivation and control, she could already control the green lotus in her belly very well. She didn't have to worry about the green lotus absorbing the vitality of the spiritual herbs and the spiritual energy in the air. Will there be heavenly thunder in here? Can this space withstand it? She murmured softly, and a thought appeared in her mind. Since she didn't know, why not give it a try? If it was possible, then she could come here if she wanted to advance in the future. Cultivating and advancing in here would be more helpful to her strength, wouldn't it? Even if she failed, she would at most miss the opportunity to advance this time. She could still advance again after some time. Since there were no fatal disadvantages, why not give it a try? After making up her mind, she took a deep breath and slowly closed her eyes. She didn't plan to use any elixirs to advance this time. She knew that the further she advanced, the harder it would be for her to improve her abilities, especially since most of the experts who had reached the fairy realm were over 100 years old. At her age, if she could directly enter the fairy realm, she would definitely have a high chance of improving her abilities again. She placed her hands on her knees, palms facing upwards. Her entire body gradually relaxed. Her heart was filled with firm conviction. She abandoned all distracting thoughts and calmed her heart, allowing herself to become one with this piece of heaven and earth. A pure spiritual aura emanated from her body. It was like a cheerful fairy circling around her, jumping in the air. The specks of light had several colors, and they were as dazzling as the stars. A person with a single element would only have one type of light. She herself was of the 5 elements, and the fire element was the strongest. Therefore, among the light that surrounded her, the fire element was the strongest. The pure spiritual aura on her body gradually merged with the pure aura of the world, and the surrounding spiritual aura was attracted. Some of it surrounded her, and some of it drilled into her body. Chapter 1704. In the sky, the clouds surged and lightning flashed. At the same time, a bolt of lightning struck down from the sky towards Fengjiu. In an instant, there was a rumble, dust flew up, and a vortex of spiritual energy surged wildly. Fengjiu, who was sitting cross-legged, could only feel the aura of spiritual energy surging into her body. This kind of momentum was like a flood bursting through a dam, rushing into her body uncontrollably. She immediately guided the aura of spiritual energy towards the green lotus so that it could absorb it. At the same time, she expanded the meridians in her body so that the powerful aura of spiritual energy could double or triple the size of her original meridians. When the spiritual energy in her body surged, she was swept up by the vortex of spiritual energy and spun in the air. When the second bolt of lightning struck down, there was a rumble and it heavily struck her body. The powerful energy of the bolt of lightning tempered her meridians and strengthened her physique, allowing her meridians and body to reach a higher level. Rumble. The third bolt of lightning struck down. As if it contained all the power, it shook the entire area, causing the fire phoenix and the others, who were cultivating in this area, to not dare to approach. The powerful pressure in the air and the aura of spiritual energy fused together, but gradually dispersed after the third bolt of lightning. The aura contained in the sky dissipated, and the sky gradually returned to blue and white. However, just as the surrounding airflow calmed down and the spiritual energy in the air calmed down, suddenly, a gust of earth energy shot up from the ground and entered her body. The surrounding spiritual energy was once again mobilized by the aura that shot up from the ground. The fire phoenix, Tunyun, Lao Bai, Little Black, and the other small beasts were about to go forward, but when they saw this scene, they froze. Seeing the movement around their master, the small beasts could not help but gasp. Heavens! Master is going to advance? Didn't she already complete her advancement? Lao Bai exclaimed. He stood beside the fire phoenix and looked at his master, who was swept up in the air, and the gust of earth chi that shot up from the ground. Why is that gust of spiritual energy shooting up from the ground? It seemed a little different from the previous ones. As Tunyon spoke, he was also a little confused. For a cultivator who had entered the fairy realm, she was able to break through from the peak of the nascent soul stage to the peak of the fairy realm. The gap in strength between the two realms was something that some cultivators could not overcome even after 100 years. But what was going on with her? The little black bear sat there in a daze, looking at its master in front of it. Tunyun, Lao Bai, and the others could not understand what was going on. Huafeng was deep in thought. Looking at the scene, she said, normally, when a cultivator breaks through from the nascent soul stage to the fairy realm, they can only reach the initial stage of the fairy realm. After all, the higher the cultivation, the more difficult it is to break through. It is already incredible that she could break through from the peak of the nascent soul stage to the peak of the fairy realm in one step. Even though it was the ancient divine beast fire phoenix, it had never encountered such a situation. If she was below the golden elixir realm, it would be fine, but she had already broken through the original infant realm and reached the peak of the fairy realm. So, how could she possibly advance further? What was the opportunity to advance this time? Chapter 1705. I got it. It's the Green Lotus. The Fire Phoenix exclaimed softly. It knew that Fengjiu had a chaotic green lotus. This green lotus had the ability to regenerate and was very mysterious. Now that she had reached the peak of the fairy realm and was able to break through again, it must be because of this chaotic green lotus. In terms of cultivation, the level above the Yuaning stage was the fairy realm, and above that was the fairy realm. This meant that if she succeeded in breaking through again, she would enter the fairy realm from the peak of the fairy realm. Fairy realm. There are less than 5 in the entire 8 great empires. If she could really enter the fairy realm and become a fairy realm, then she would be a powerhouse whose strength could shake a region. Thinking of this, the Fire Phoenix could not help but feel excited. It stared at Fengjiu, who was breaking through in front of it, hoping that she could break through again. This way, even if she reached the upper reaches of the continent, she would be able to stand firm. However, this breakthrough was not so easy. A few days had passed, and there were still no signs of a breakthrough. A few small bees stood guard not far away. Another half a month had passed, and it was still the same. There was no breakthrough. Seeing this, they guessed that the breakthrough this time would not be so fast, so they all retreated and did not pay attention to the progress of their master's breakthrough. Outside, Guanxilin and Feng Xiao had been training the Phoenix Guards and helping them to improve their strength. They had not seen Fengjiu for half a month, but they did not disturb her because Fengjiu had told them that if she did not come out, no one was to disturb her. In addition, the courtyard where she lived was covered with formations and enchantments. Even if they wanted to enter, they could not. Perhaps it was because of the passing of their companions and loved ones that they all had a common goal. No matter how hard the training was, the Phoenix Guards and the others did not complain. They strengthened their cultivation day and night. As the days passed, with the help of medicinal pills, each of their strength increased rapidly. However, 1 month passed, 3 months passed, and in the blink of an eye, 6 months had passed. Every Phoenix Guard combat power and strength had increased by 1 to 2 levels. However, after training hard for half a year, they still had not seen their master come out. This made them a little worried. Master has been in seclusion for half a year, right? She hasn't come out for so long. Is she okay? What are you talking about? How could something happen to Master when he's in seclusion? But it's been too long, and I haven't heard any sounds of him advancing. Besides, it's not like there aren't any cultivators who died in the process of breaking through. Why did you hit me? The Phoenix Guard scratched his head. When he turned around and saw that it was his captain, he could not help but keep quiet and did not dare to speak again. What nonsense are you all talking about? Did he have too much free time? If you have too much free time, then continue to practice. Luo Yu glared at the few people who were chatting as he shouted, Captain, we don't have any other intentions. We're just a little worried, said the Phoenix Guard. What are you worried about? What was there to worry about? You'd better worry about waiting for Master to come out of seclusion to check your fighting strength. Luo Yu coldly snorted and said, before she went into seclusion, she said that the top 10 would be rewarded and the bottom 10 would also be punished. Hearing this, the Phoenix Guards hurriedly responded and quickly left to continue their training. Chapter 1706. How do we ask? We won't know even if we ask. Master has set up a barrier and a formation in her courtyard. If she doesn't come out, no one can enter. Luo Yu said as he found a place to sit down. He paused for a moment and then grinned. Moreover, I believe in Master. She'll be fine. I believe that when she comes out, she will give us a surprise. Hearing this, everyone looked at each other and couldn't help but smile. That's right. So many things had happened. How could there be any accidents during the advancement? Just as they thought, Fengjiu didn't encounter any danger during the advancement. On the contrary, the advancement was unexpectedly smooth. On this day, in the space after half a year, 3 heavenly thunders once again struck down from the sky, once again tempering the tendons and veins of her body. What was different from the last time was that this time, even the small beast that had contracted with her benefited from her advancement. She broke through from the peak of the fairy realm to the intermediate stage of the immortal sage realm, becoming an expert of the intermediate stage. Fire Phoenix's strength increased by another level. Devouring Cloud had also become a peak divine beast king. Even the little black bear had also advanced from the divine beast realm to the sacred beast realm. Only Lao Bai was still the same as before, as if her advancement didn't affect him. Moreover, in this half a year, only Lao Bai's grade hadn't changed. Even so, her advancement had helped the little beasts other than Lao Bai. Now, each of her contracted beasts' combat strength was absolutely astonishing. In midair, as the spiritual aura dissipated, Fengjiu slowly opened her eyes. She looked at the heaven and earth, as if every inch of the land had merged with her. She could clearly feel their existence, as well as an indescribable feeling. Seeing Fengjiu floating down from midair, Lao Bai walked up to her and asked in low spirits, "Master, why did they all advance, but I didn't?" He could understand why Fire Phoenix and Devouring Cloud had advanced, but why did Little Black advance while he didn't? Was it because he was a mutated beast? Was that why his advancement was slow? Hearing this, Fengjiu looked at Lao Bai and smiled. He patted his head and said, "It's okay. It's good that you worked hard." She turned to look at Fire Phoenix, Swallowing Cloud, and Little Black. She smiled and said, "You've been here for so long. Let's go out and have some fun." "All right," the little beasts replied. Suddenly, Tunyon seemed to have thought of something and said, "Master, the fruit on that vase tree seems to have ripened." Hearing this, before Fengjiu could react, Lao Bai, who had been lowering his head in a bad mood, suddenly raised his head and said while drooling, "Cooked? Really? I'll go take a look." As soon as he finished speaking, a whirlwind appeared beside him. When he looked again, Lao Bai had already disappeared. Fengjiu was stunned for a moment. He quickly regained his senses and chased after him. Old Bai's craving is acting up again. "Are you planning to steal my spirit fruit? Quick, chase after him. There are only 5 fruits on that tree. Don't let him steal them." Hearing this, Fire Phoenix and Devouring Cloud immediately rushed towards the vase tree and chased closely behind Fengjiu. As for the little black bear cub, it tilted its head and slowly ran after them. The fruit, the spirit fruit, is really ripened. Chapter 17:07. Smelling the dense and pure spirit chi emitted from the spirit fruit, as well as the rich fruit fragrance that made it want to pounce on it and take a bite, White Tiger's mouth watered. At this moment, how could it be depressed because it had not advanced while the others had? At this moment, it only wanted to taste the fruit. White Tiger had been watching this fruit since its owner brought it in. It had been watering it and waiting for it to turn from green to red. However, it did not pay much attention to it during this period of time and did not expect it to have ripened. It was as if the little wife that humans had been raising had finally grown up and could eat. Looking at the bright red color, it swallowed its saliva, opened its mouth, and moved forward to bite one of them off. Today, no one could stop White Tiger from eating it. Crunch, so sweet, so fragrant, so rich in the taste of spirit fruit. White Tiger bit down, and the fruit broke in its mouth with a crunch. The rich fragrance of the spirit fruit immediately filled the air. White Tiger seemed to be afraid of losing the fragrance and quickly closed its mouth to chew. When Fengjiu caught up from afar, she saw White Tiger standing under the bottle tree with its back facing her. White Tiger's head was slightly lowered and its mouth was constantly chewing. She immediately glared at White Tiger. "You, White Tiger, I clearly told you not to steal this spirit fruit. Did you take my words for granted?" Hearing the voice behind him, White Tiger sped up its chewing. However, due to the shock, it accidentally swallowed the core of the fruit. It only felt that the core was stuck in its throat and could not move up or down. It was so suffocating that it could not breathe. Hiss, hiss. White Tiger lowered its head and wanted to spit out the core. However, the core was stuck in its throat and could not come out. It could not help but kneel down and lay down on the ground, hissing. Fengjiu was startled when she saw this. She quickly walked forward and said, "Look at you. You're eating secretly." She held White Tiger's chin with one hand and touched its throat with the other. She pressed down hard and saw White Tiger spit out the core. "Phew, we're saved." Lao Bai's entire body fell down, lying on his back. Looking at his master and his other three companions, he grinned and said, "Master, that fruit is very fragrant, very sweet, very crispy, and very delicious." "Delicious my ass." Feng Zhu slapped his hand down. "I only have 5 fruits, and I don't even know what kind of fruit they are. You ate one just like that. Are you ignoring my words?" "Master, you can't blame me for this. The fruit flew into my mouth by itself, really." Its eyes darted around, and it lowered its head, not daring to look at her. "This is a spirit fruit tree that was originally guarded by a group of snakes. If you eat it just like that, don't come looking for me if something happens." She crossed her arms and snorted. It was not that she could not bear to let White Tiger eat it. However, what kind of spirit fruit did this bottle of fruit belong to? What was its use? Back then, the group of snakes guarded it very tightly. She had not even figured out the use of this fruit, and she had already let White Tiger eat it. Now that White Tiger had eaten it, even if she did not eat it, there was no point in saying anything. Thus, she took a deep breath and said, "Hurry up while you still remember. Try to recall the taste of the fruit you ate. Also, do you feel any different after eating the fruit?" Chapter 1708. What are you waiting for? Feng Zhou glanced at it and took out a pen and paper, preparing to write it down. There were not many fruits, and each one was extremely precious. She first memorized what Lao Bai said and then observed its reaction after eating the fruit. Lao Bai shook its head. "I forgot. It was only focused on eating it and did not want to be caught by its master. How could it have thought of tasting it?" Hearing this, Feng Zhou was speechless and looked at it speechlessly. In the end, she could only shake her head helplessly. "Forget it. You won't get anything out of it. I might as well study it myself." She walked to the bottom of the tree and looked at the remaining 4 fruits hanging between the leaves. The green leaves and red fruits were extremely dazzling and beautiful. She could not bear to pluck the fruits from the tree. Even if she did not pluck them, the fruits would not fall from the branches when they were ripe. This was the benefit of this spiritual abode. Hanging them on the branches could maintain the freshness of the spiritual fruits. She decided not to pluck them and wait for Lao Bai's reaction after eating the spiritual fruits. Thus, she said, "There are only 4 spiritual fruits left. Listen, without my permission, if anyone dares to eat them secretly, I will punish them." Fire Phoenix and the others were not that interested in the spiritual fruits and nodded in agreement. Lao Bai ate one secretly and did not dare to eat anymore. It could only nod obediently. "Lao Bai, come here. Let me check you." Feng Zhou came to the spiritual spring and gestured for Lao Bai to come forward. Seeing this, Lao Bai hurriedly went forward. "Master, I won't eat it secretly next time. Really, I promise." Feng Zhou rolled his eyes. "Your promise is not trustworthy." Hearing this, Lao Bai lowered its head in embarrassment. Fire Phoenix and Tunyon saw this and could not help but grin. With this unreliable Lao Bai, it would be strange if his promise was useful. Strange, why does it not seem to feel anything? Feng Zhou helped Lao Bai to check and found that there was nothing wrong with its body. He could not help but think, could it be that the fruit is just an ordinary spiritual fruit used to replenish spiritual energy? If it was an ordinary spirit fruit, the group of snakes would not have guarded it to such an extent. But if it was not, why did Old White not react after eating it? "Master, why don't you eat one too? You'll know what it does after you eat it," Lao Bai suggested thoughtlessly. "However, I feel that the fruit is just crisper than other fruits, sweeter and more fragrant than other fruits, and has a nicer shape. That's all. Forget it. Let's go out first," she said. She decided to go out first and think about it later. She would find out the use of the spirit fruit sooner or later. All right. Lao Bai wagged his tail and was about to follow her out to the wine cellar to have a drink or two. Unexpectedly, after taking 2 steps, his body suddenly felt that something was not quite right. Yes, with a muffled groan, its entire body fell to the ground. Its body was twitching, scaring the little black bear and Tunyon who were beside it. Hearing the commotion behind him, Feng Zhou turned around and was also shocked. He quickly went forward. "Old Bai, what happened to you?" Lao Bai's body was twitching. He looked at Feng Jiu and said, Master, I might die. Feng Jiu's heart sank. No, don't worry. Even if you're poisoned, I'll save you. Master, I'm dying. My whole body feels terrible, like I'm going to be torn apart. Chapter 1709. Seeing that Feng Jiu was repelled by the light, the fire phoenix and the other two beasts quickly retreated. They looked at Lao Bai, who was rolling on the ground, in shock. What was going on? Lao Bai, who was lying on the ground, was emitting a blinding white light. They could only see him rolling on the ground and screaming in pain. Feng Jiu, who was repelled, sat on the ground and looked at the screaming Lao Bai in shock. She was stunned for a moment, then exclaimed in a low voice, Lao Bai is about to evolve. The spiritual energy in the surroundings surged towards where Lao Bai was and lingered around him for a long time. Lao Bai's body was surrounded by a dazzling white light, but one could vaguely see that his body seemed to be undergoing some changes. Evolving. Fire Phoenix and Tunyon looked at each other in shock. Lao Bai's abilities were as good as nothing. He was a mutated beast, but he did not seem to have any special abilities. Furthermore, he was not a mythical beast. At most, he could only be called a holy beast. Even if a holy beast were to evolve into a mythical beast, it should not be like this, right? Or was it because he was a mutated beast, so he was different from other mythical beasts? Master, I'm dying. Lao Bai screamed, his voice shrill and hoarse. Feng Jiu suddenly regained her senses. She did not go forward, but said to Lao Bai with a serious expression, Lao Bai, you're about to evolve. Quickly stabilize your mind and endure it. As long as you endure it, you can advance to the next level. But it hurts. It's like someone is cutting my flesh with a knife. What if I can't endure it? Lao Bai asked. Feng Jiu's eyes darkened. If you can't endure it, you'll die. As soon as she finished speaking, she looked up at the sky. Dark clouds were gathering there, and lightning flashed through the clouds. The sound of thunder could be heard faintly from the clouds. It seemed that Lao Bai was not just evolving, he might be mutating. Mutated beasts were extremely rare, and their hidden abilities were unknown. Lao Bai was originally a mutated beast, so he had the head of a dragon and the body of a horse. If he ran, he would be extremely fast and powerful. However, no one had seen his attributes and special abilities in battle. If he mutated again, then what kind of mutated beast would he become? It was more difficult for mutated beasts to evolve than other mythical beasts, and the mortality rate was higher. Thinking of this, Feng Jiu let out a sigh of relief. She took out a pill from her space and flicked it at Lao Bai, and shouted, Lao Bai, open your mouth. Lao Bai cried out in pain because of the tearing pain in his body. His strength was gradually disappearing. Although he wanted to do as his master said and make a breakthrough, he felt that his life force was already slipping away. At this time, when it heard its master's voice, it looked towards her and saw a pill being thrown towards it. It instinctively opened its mouth and swallowed the pill. As soon as the pill entered its mouth, a rich spiritual aura spread through its throat. As the pill slid down its stomach, its physical strength, which had been gradually losing, quickly recovered. It was unknown whether it was the pill's effect or Lao Bai's own problem, but Lao Bai screamed at the sky, and a strong pressure, accompanied by spiritual aura, spread out like ripples in water. Chapter 1710. At this moment, Lao Bai, who had been lying on the ground, stood up and shook his body. Suddenly, his horse body disappeared, and he turned into a white dragon. The dragon's body was so thick that it was impossible for one person to wrap their arms around it. It was about 3 meters long, and its scales glowed with a silver light. Its 4 dragon claws were sharp and cold. When it lifted its head with 2 dragon horns, its 2 whiskers swayed with its breath. Its dragon eyes were wide open, and it seemed to be confused and doubtful. Feng Jiu was dumbfounded. She stood there and stared blankly at Lao Bai, who had suddenly turned from a white horse into a white dragon. If Lao Bai originally only looked half like a dragon, then now he looked like a dragon from head to toe. The Fire Phoenix and Tunyon were rather dumbfounded as well. They stared at the bewildered Senior White, who was hovering in the air. Senior White's eyes were wide open as he sized up Tunyon's body and tail. The two beasts didn't know what to say. Wasn't Lao Bai just a horse? At most, it was a mutated horse. How did it suddenly turn into a dragon? After recovering from the shock, Lao Bai suddenly exclaimed, "Ah, Master, I've mutated again." He jumped up and down in the air. Soon, he arrived in front of Fengjiu. His bulging dragon eyes were filled with excitement. "Master, look at me now. Isn't it better than my original horse body? Don't you feel that I've become more advanced? Did I suddenly turn from a horse into a dragon? Master, do you think I'm part of the dragon race now?" He wagged his dragon tail excitedly. He felt that he had become one level higher. Fengjiu blinked and looked at Lao Bai. She reached out and touched the silver-white scales on his body. "You've really become a dragon?" With that, she touched the horn among the dragon horns. Since he had turned into a dragon, why was the horn still there? "Looks like that fruit is really something good." Fengjiu smiled as she spoke. At that time, the group of snakes had been guarding it, so she knew that this fruit tree must be extraordinary. Now that she saw Lao Bai evolve into a dragon, she could imagine that this fruit indeed had the ability to stimulate potential and make spirit beasts mutate. If the Snake King had swallowed this spirit fruit, perhaps it would have transformed from a snake into a devious wyvern. She had transformed from a snake into a dragon and soared into the sky. It was no wonder that the Snake King had chased after her. "Let's go. He's out," she said with a smile. Seeing that the little beasts had all advanced, she was very happy. However, just as she was about to bring them out, she caught a glimpse of green from the corner of her eyes. She raised her eyebrows and looked in that direction. That side was where the spiritual herbs were planted. Just now, she caught a glimpse of a green figure in the spiritual herb field. If it wasn't the green-feathered chicken, what else could it be? Too many things had happened in the past, and her mood was in a mess. After throwing the little beasts in here to cultivate, she didn't pay them any attention. She remembered the Fire Phoenix and the others. After all, they were bound by a contract, and she could sense them with just a thought. As for this green-feathered chicken, because she didn't have a contract with it and it didn't seem to have appeared recently, she had forgotten about it. If she hadn't caught a glimpse of that green in the spiritual herb field, she would have forgotten that there was a green-feathered chicken by her side. "Master, what's wrong?" Tunyon asked. He turned around but did not see anything. Chapter 17:11. Little Black stared blankly at Fengjiu and mimicked them by tilting its head and looking around. No one knew what it was looking for. "You haven't seen green hair recently?" Fengjiu asked as it slowly walked towards the spiritual medicine field. "Green hair?" The three little beasts were startled and shook their heads. "No. Is it here too?" That chicken was really ignored by them, and they didn't hear Green Hair's noisy crows for a while. "I just remembered that it has been here all this while and hasn't gone out," Fengjiu said as she walked forward and looked around the spiritual medicine field. She didn't see Green Hair for a while, so she shouted, "Green Hair, come out." Who knew? There was still no movement. Hence, she released her divine sense and scanned the surroundings. Finally, her gaze fell on a patch of grass not far from the spiritual medicine field. She walked forward and squatted down in front of a patch of weeds. Looking at the small hole that was covered by weeds, she couldn't help but feel puzzled. She asked the small hole, "Green Hair, what are you doing inside?" This Green Hair actually dug a hole here and hid itself in it. But it's a chicken and not a gopher. Why would it hide in a hole? Even if it was looking for a nest, it should be a grass nest. Who knew? Green Hair stuck its head out and looked at Fengjiu outside the hole. It didn't say anything and shrank back as if it didn't intend to go out. Furthermore, its pair of small eyes were looking at Fengjiu with vigilance and caution. Seeing this, Fengjiu was slightly surprised and puzzled. She stepped aside and said to Fire Phoenix, "Catch Green Hair and see what's going on." "Okay," Fire Phoenix replied and stepped forward. However, before it could do anything, Green Hair started to cry from inside. "Kikik. No, I don't want to go out." It first raised its head and crowed a few times, then shouted in human language, afraid that Fengjiu would really let the fire phoenix catch it. At that time, she had also given Greenhair a speech pill to facilitate communication. Other than occasionally chirping, it would also speak human language. However, after it entered the space, it seemed to have stopped moving. Otherwise, she and the other little beasts would not have been unable to discover it. "Why aren't you coming out? Are you all right?" Fengjiu asked, gesturing for Fire Phoenix to back off. "What are you doing in there?" Unexpectedly, the green-furred cat rolled its small eyes and said, "It's warm inside." Hearing this, Fengjiu's mouth twitched. He glanced at Greenhair in the cave with a faint smile. "It's warm inside? Do you want me to add fuel to the fire? Barbecue you directly? Maybe it will be warmer, don't you think? How could you do this?" Greenhair seemed to be somewhat aggrieved. "I've only secretly eaten some of your elixirs occasionally. I haven't done anything bad. Yet you want to roast me and eat me? What else can I do? Tell me, what are you doing in there?" As she spoke, she saw that Greenhair had been lying there without moving. Moreover, its chicken wings seemed to be intentionally or unintentionally protecting something under its body. Seeing this, her heart skipped a beat. "Were you hiding under your body?" she casually asked. Could it be that it had stolen some elixirs and was hiding it from her? "No, I'm not hiding anything," Greenhair said nervously. Its round body was somewhat tense. It was obvious that it was trying to hide something. Chapter 17:12. Greenhair saw her turn to leave and heaved a sigh of relief. Who knew that in the next moment, a claw would reach in from outside and directly grab it out? "Kakik, you're up to no good," it shouted in exasperation, but saw that Fengjiu had already reached in and took out the thing from its nest. "What's this?" Fengjiu looked at the round bead in her hand in astonishment. It was about the size of an egg. It didn't look like an egg, but it should be some kind of bead. However, she couldn't tell what kind of bead it was. She only knew that this bead was emitting a strong, spiritual aura. "I gave birth to it. I gave birth to it. It's mine. Kakik." Chicken Feathers all stood up. It looked at Fengjiu nervously and excitedly. Its pair of small eyes stared closely at the bead in her hand. Fengjiu glanced at it and smiled faintly. "Even you are mine. The egg you gave birth to naturally belongs to me. However, this doesn't seem to be an egg, right?" She reached out and touched the thing in Greenhair's stomach. As expected, it was gone. It seemed that it had been hiding here all this time because it gave birth to this bead. However, what kind of bead was this? It was gray and hazy. She only knew that its spiritual aura was very strong, but she couldn't see anything else. Seeing this, Greenhair couldn't help but feel dejected. "I knew that I wouldn't be able to keep it if you found out." Forget it. I'll give it to you." Thinking that it ate and lived on her, it wasn't impossible for it to give this bead to her. After all, although it didn't have a contract, she could be considered as half its master. Moreover, it had guarded this bead for more than half a year and didn't see any other use for it. "All right, you can all go out." She kept the bead and waved her sleeves, bringing them all out. In the blink of an eye, they appeared in the room. Lao Bai was the first to rush out and shouted excitedly, "Lung Shuang Beauty! Come and see, I've advanced. I've become a dragon." However, when it flew out, it was bounced back by the barrier and fell into the yard. Tunyon slowly walked out from behind and glanced at it. "You can't change this habit of yours, even if you're in dragon form. Can't you see that Master has set up a formation and enchantment in his courtyard? You're so brainless." Senior White opened his mouth and glared, yet he didn't say anything in the end. He could only go to the side and wait for his master to come out. Not long after, Fengjiu walked out and waved her hand to remove the barrier in array. At the same time, she ordered them to summon Lung Shuang to her. Therefore, the little beasts ran out. Lao Bai excitedly told the Phoenix Guard about its advancement, while the Fire Phoenix flew around and patrolled the area. Tunyon walked into the forest at a leisurely pace. Even Greenhair was chirping and flapping its wings to fly away. Only Xiao Hei sat in the courtyard in a daze. After a short while, everyone knew that Fengjiu had come out of seclusion. When they heard this news, everyone smiled. It was good that she had come out of seclusion. They had been holding each other's hands for the past half a year. Master, Lung Shuang and Lung Hua had both arrived. When they saw their master standing in the middle of the courtyard in red, their eyes lit up with surprise. After not seeing their master for half a year, her aura seemed to have changed greatly. Her aura seemed to have merged with heaven and earth. If one didn't check carefully, one wouldn't be able to detect the existence of her aura. Chapter 17:13. That kind of aura, that kind of invisible coercion, made them lower their heads, not daring to look directly into her eyes. Furthermore, after coming out of closed-door cultivation this time, she had given them a great shock. None of the powerful cultivators they had met in the past could compare to her. It seems that Master's closed-door cultivation for half a year must have made a great breakthrough in her cultivation. When they thought of this, the two of them could not help but smile joyfully. The more powerful their master was, the more joyful they were. Because only when their master was powerful, then the incident from half a year ago would not happen again. Congratulations, Master, on the great increase in your cultivation, the two of them said at the same time. Fengjiu smiled and said, Lung Shuang, prepare some hot water. I want to take a bath. Also, Lung Hua, tell me about what has happened during this period of time. Yes, the two of them replied and went about their tasks separately. Lung Shuang prepared the water for Fengjiu to take a bath, while Lung Hua gave her a rough account of what had happened in and out of the valley during this period of time. The countries around the Phoenix dynasty have not dared to invade. They seem to be afraid. However, there are still some forces who are looking for Master's whereabouts. The black market has also sent people to investigate, but they have not been able to find this area. Furthermore, the Grand Empress maternal family is also looking for us. When they received the news, the Master sent someone to deliver the news. At this point, Lung Hua paused for a moment. When the news of Master Guan and the others' deaths reached them, one could imagine how great of a blow it was to them. Not only had they lost their daughter, but they had also lost their grandson. Fengjiu's eyes flashed when she heard this. Even though half a year had passed, every time she thought of how her grandfather and the others had died, she would feel exceptionally terrible. As for the Phoenix Guards, their strength has increased by 1 or 2 levels under the training of the Patriarch and young Master Guan. Among them, Luo Yu and the other 7 captains of the Phoenix Guards are already at the peak of the Martial Saint realm. The Patriarch is already at the peak of the Martial God realm. Even Amadam's strength has increased. Another thing is that the situation in the Xianyuan Empire isn't looking good. 4 of the other 7 empires have joined forces to deal with the Xianyuan Empire. Now, the Xianyuan Empire is being attacked from both the front and the back. It's chaotic both internally and externally. Even with Lord Yin, it's difficult to stabilize the situation. Moreover, that secret force is still suppressing the Xianyuan Empire. We can already conclude that this force is the famous Temple of the Dark Knight among the upstream forces. Yama's father's cultivation was crippled by their people. Even our Phoenix dynasty, as well as the old man and the others, were also done by them. Hearing Lung Hua's words, a cold light flashed in Fengjiu's eyes. He opened his mouth and said, The Temple of Darkness? Very good. Now that she knew which force was behind this, she knew where to start. After staying silent for half a year, it was time for her to go out for a walk. Master, the water is ready. Please take a bath. Lung Hua walked out and said, She replied and stood up. She then said to Lung Hua, Tell my parents that I'll go look for them later. Also, tell the Phoenix Guards to get ready. I want to see the results of their training. Yes, Lung Hua replied and turned to leave. Chapter 17:14. After bathing, Fengjiu first went to her parents' courtyard. When she arrived, she saw Guan Shilin. She smiled and called out, Father, mother, brother. The 3 people waiting in the courtyard heard the sound and turned their heads to look. They saw her in a red robe, elegant and graceful. Her brows exuded a confident and proud aura as she slowly walked over. It was clearly the same person, but the aura and momentum on her body seemed to have undergone an earth-shattering change. They could not help but be secretly surprised when they saw it. Previously, they had heard from Lung Hua that Xiao Jiu had advanced, and she might not even be at the fairy realm. Now that they saw her, they suddenly realized that she had changed more than that. His entire being had undergone a tremendous change. Now, her aura was restrained, as if she had become one with the heavens and the earth. If one didn't look carefully, one wouldn't notice her aura at all. It was as if she had reached the celestial realm. Her red robe was very dazzling, but it also seemed ethereal. Her face seemed to be hidden in a cloud, and it was difficult to see clearly. Xiaojiu, what's your current level of strength? Feng Xiao asked in shock. He had seen many people, but he had never seen someone like her. Her strength shouldn't be at the fairy realm, right? Feng Zhou pursed her lips and smiled. She said, I'm at the peak of the celestial sage realm. Celestial? Peak of the celestial sage realm? Feng Xiao widened his eyes in shock. The peak of the celestial sage realm was above the fairy realm. However, generally speaking, no matter how talented a cultivator was, he wouldn't be able to jump directly from the peak of the nascent soul realm to the peak of the celestial sage realm. The higher the level of one's strength, the harder it was to advance. Even among the upper echelons, the strongest person who dealt with them was only at the fairy realm. However, she had actually advanced from the peak of the nascent soul realm to the peak of the celestial sage realm after cultivating in seclusion for half a year. If it were someone else, they wouldn't be able to reach such a level even if they cultivated for 50 or even 100 years. Shangguan Wanrong also looked at her daughter in disbelief. She muttered, Peak of the celestial sage realm? That's a battle prowess equivalent to 100 fairy realm experts. One of them was equivalent to 100 fairy realm experts. So, how terrifying was his combat prowess? Just how strong was this expert? Thinking of this, her heart began to thump wildly. With Xiao Jiu's strength, there was no need for her to fear anyone. Furthermore, she was still young, and her strength would definitely increase in the future. Even some of the clans in the upper echelons would reconsider if they wanted to make an enemy out of such a strong person. She took a deep breath and exhaled slowly, calming herself down. She was really happy that her daughter had such strength and power. In this way, when she went out in the future, even if they were not by her side, they would not have to worry about whether she would be in danger. Right now, even if she had reached the upper reaches, she was already a powerhouse that no one would dare to provoke. Furthermore, she had both alchemy and medical skills. She would definitely be dazzling no matter where she went. Great! To be able to reach the pinnacle of the sage immortal realm in just half a year, Xiaojiu, you're truly a genius. Guan Shilin laughed heartily. Chapter 17:15. Hearing this, Feng Xiao and Shangguan Wanrong looked at each other and asked, Are you going out? Yes, it's time to deal with those things. She nodded and looked at the two of them, saying, Father, Mother, I hope that you can stay here for now. This place can be said to be aloof from worldly affairs, and there's no danger. I'll be more at ease if you're here. Don't worry. Do whatever you want. Don't worry about us. We'll take care of ourselves. Feng Xiao patted her hand and said. His daughter was not an ordinary person. This place could not trap her. He knew that she would still go out. Yes, we'll wait here for you to come back. Don't worry, Shangguan Wanrong said softly. Now this was their home. Even if the dark forces wanted to deal with them, they could not. Here, they would be very safe. Feng Zhou nodded and then looked at Guan Shilin, saying, Brother, I'm going to see how the Phoenix Guard's strength has increased recently. Let's go together. Okay. Guan Shilin responded and bowed to Feng Xiao and Shangguan Wanrong. Then, the two of them walked out together. In the field and the forest, the Phoenix Guards heard that their master had come out of seclusion and was going to check on their results in the past 6 months. Therefore, all of them stood straight in the forest, nervously waiting for their master's arrival. Although they were very satisfied with their progress in the past half a year, if they were to look at it from Master's point of view, would Master feel that they were advancing too slowly? Even if they were satisfied and felt that it was already good, it was still not as good as their Master's affirmation. Feng Jiu, who was chatting with Guanxilin, came to the forest and saw the Phoenix Guard standing there. Each of them was as straight as a pine tree and had a biting cold aura. Their bodies were filled with a strong fighting spirit. He stopped in front of them and saw them kneel on one knee and bow respectfully. "Greetings, master. Get up." Feng Jiu gestured as his gaze swept over Luo Yu's group of 8 before sweeping over the Phoenix Guards behind them. With a sweep of his divine sense, he had a rough idea of their strength. Compared to half a year ago, she had definitely improved a lot. In addition, her brother had also told her on the way that her combat strength and adaptability had improved. It seemed that it was about time. "Split into 2 teams and fight. I want to see your battle prowess," she instructed, and then retreated to a higher ground. "Yes." When the crowd heard her words, they quickly split into 2 groups to fight. For a time, the sound of fists surging through the air, as well as low shouts, could be heard from time to time. When their fists collided, it was as if they contained the force of 1,000 pounds. When their palms collided, it was as sharp as a blade. "How is it? Are you satisfied?" Guanxilin asked as he looked at the people fighting below. "They are all trained according to the training method you mentioned. There are ambush teams, tracking teams, and main attack teams. I think their strength is pretty good after half a year of training." Guanxilin asked as he looked at the people fighting below. Feng Jiu looked and said, "If they face the enemy head-on, there's still a risk. However, if they cooperate with each other, they can kill in one fell swoop. Indeed, looking at their battle prowess, it's much better than before. It seems that you've put in a lot of effort." Chapter 17:16. Feng Jiu looked at the Phoenix Guards fighting below and said, "Brother, I'm going to bring them out for a real battle. Since the Xinyuan Empire is being attacked by the other empires, I want to attack them from the shadows." "No problem," Guanxilin said loudly. "Count me in. I'll go with you." She turned to look at him and smiled. "Okay." After about 2 hours, the Phoenix Guards stopped one by one under Feng Jiu's command. They were panting. After the battle, they all had some scratches on their bodies. Even if they were knocked down by their opponents, they continued to stand up. Therefore, after a round of fighting, it was inevitable that they would be injured. "Bring all your teams back to rest. I have a mission for you in 2 days," Feng Jiu said to them as he stood on a high ground. "Yes," everyone responded and quickly left under the leadership of their respective team leaders. 2 days later, she left 10 Phoenix Guards, the black bear cub and green hair, to accompany her parents in the valley. The others were divided into several teams. Under the leadership of Du Fan, Guanxilin, and Feng Jiu, they set off in 3 teams. They did not set off together. Instead, they set off separately. However, their destination was the same. It was one of the 8 great empires that was attacking the Xinyuan Empire. On the other side, in the palace of the Xinyuan Empire, Xinyuan Mose received a message from Yin Dian from Feng Jiu. When he found out that she had come out of seclusion and was heading towards the 8 great empires, he was still a little worried. The message did not mention how strong she was now. However, under normal circumstances, from the peak of the nascent soul stage, one would naturally be at the fairy stage. He felt that no matter how outstanding Feng Jiu's cultivation talent was, and with the help of pills, her strength would only be at the peak of the fairy stage. Although the peak of the fairy stage was not weak, if those people were to target her again, they would definitely gang up on her. Huilang saw that he was deep in thought after reading the message and did not respond for a long time. Huilang secretly moved 2 steps forward and took a look. After reading the message in the letter, he grinned. "Master, the ghost doctor is coming over? If she appears again, her strength must be stronger than before. If she comes, she can help Master a little. Master should be happy. Why are you frowning?" The strength of a fairy realm cultivator can't be said to be very strong. Those people looked for her for a few months and didn't find any news, so they moved their eyes away. If they knew that she had appeared again, they definitely wouldn't let her go so easily. Xinyuan Mose said in a deep voice. He tapped his fingers on the table, making a knocking sound. Due to the involvement of the upstream forces in this matter, he was unable to settle this matter even after half a year. If it was in the past, those empires wouldn't have dared to continue pressuring them like this. However, they had the backing of the upper echelons now, so they naturally didn't fear the Xianyuan Empire. Conversely, if they were able to take down those empires and divide them up, then it would naturally be extremely beneficial to them. In the past half a year, Yin Dian's forces had been destroyed, and his father was in such a state. The internal and external turmoil of the Xianyuan Empire was too great, and with the interference of the upstream forces, it was impossible to stabilize the situation in a short period of time. Chapter 17:17. Xianyuan Mose remained silent. He knew that he could only wait for her arrival. However, what he didn't know was that although Fengjiu and the others came to the 8 great empires, they weren't going to the Xianyuan Empire. Instead, they were going to the Qishui Empire, one of the 4 empires that were besieging the Xianyuan Empire. Ever since the Qishui Empire's marriage failed, and they returned with their tails between their legs, they held a grudge against the Xianyuan Empire, especially Xianyuan Mose and Fengjiu. The crown prince and the 3rd princess of Qishui province had suffered losses at their hands. Therefore, when it came to dealing with the Xianyuan Empire, the Qishui province contributed the most. Therefore, after about a month's journey, Fengjiu and the others, who were the first to arrive at the Qishui Empire, sneaked into the Qishui imperial city and laid in ambush. On one hand, they were gathering information. On the other hand, they were waiting for the arrival of Guan Shilin and Du Fan. In the Qishui Imperial Palace, Prince Qishui and the 3rd princess were discussing matters with their father in the main hall. Father, now that the Xianyuan Empire is attacked from both sides, why don't we take advantage of this opportunity to destroy them? Prince Qishui asked in confusion. That's right, father. This is the time to raise the prestige of our Qishui Empire. That old man Xianyuan is already a cripple, so we don't need to fear him. The most difficult one to deal with right now is Xianyuan Mose. However, with the strength of your empire, the other 3 empires, and the backing behind them, I think it's about time. Thinking of the humiliation she suffered when the engagement was broken off, she gritted her teeth in anger. That Fengjiu was said to be the princess of the Phoenix dynasty. Now, the Phoenix dynasty had been destroyed by the experts behind them. The entire imperial palace was destroyed, and even that Fengjiu was hiding somewhere. She had vented her anger, but that Xianyuan Mose. Thinking that Xianyuan Mose was still guarding the imperial palace of the Xianyuan Empire, she felt resentment, but also admiration. That man not only had the looks of a celestial being, he also had extremely outstanding abilities. Unfortunately, he was blind. He didn't want a peerless beauty with status like her, and instead fell in love with the princess of an inferior country, Fengjiu. He helped her humiliate them and trampled them under his feet. From then on, she knew that the Qishui Empire and the Xianyuan Empire were irreconcilable enemies. It all depended on who had the ability to stand at the end and become the leader of the nations. Now, with the help of the forces behind them, it would be extremely easy for them to become the leader of the countries. Do you think that Xianyuan Mose is an ordinary person? The monarch of the Qishui Empire chuckles and looks at his son and daughter. Since the internal strife in the Xianyuan Empire, how many of you have survived? He stood up and strode into the great hall with his hands clasped behind his back. Besides, let's not talk about his own strength and cultivation. You should be able to tell that Xianyuan Mose is the most difficult one to deal with just from the fact that he's still alive after suffering from the Millennium Ice poison. Hearing this, the brother and sister can't help but look at each other without saying anything. If an ordinary person is poisoned by the Millennium Frost poison, they will die after 3 times. But his Millennium Frost poison has been around for a long time, and he can still cure it. Tell me, do you think we can kill a person like him just because we want to? Chapter 17:18. What is his cultivation level? The siblings looked at each other and said, based on his age and talent, he should be a fairy realm master. A fairy realm master? Ha ha. The lord of Qishui province smiled and shook his head. You don't even know what level he is at, and you want to kill him? Don't know? She had always thought that Xianyuan Mose was a fairy realm master. After all, a fairy realm master was the strongest existence she had ever encountered. Father, could it be that he is not a fairy realm master? Prince Chishui clenched his fists, feeling resentful and unwilling. Xianyuan Mose was a crown prince, and so was he. However, there was a huge difference between the two of them. It was as if he had always been suppressed by Xianyuan Mose. As far as I know, Xianyuan Mose's bestial cultivation level is definitely higher than the fairy realm. He paused, then continued. However, if he is not at the fairy realm, then he might be at the celestial saint level. However, even I have never seen a celestial saint. His voice was filled with emotion. If it is difficult to cultivate to the celestial saint level, then it is really a step into the celestial world. The strength of a celestial saint is equivalent to the strength of 100 fairy realm masters. Xianyuan Mose's strength is what we have always been afraid of. Do you think that although we have the support of the upstream forces, when we are really in danger, the people from the upstream forces will save us? He shook his head and said, "You are too naive, too naive. We have teamed up with a few empires, but no one is really attacked. No matter which country attacks, it will definitely be the one that suffers the most losses. If we attack first, our empire will suffer the most losses. If the people from the other countries take the opportunity to attack, then wouldn't it be a waste of effort?" He was an emperor, a ruler of a country. He thought further than them. They only thought about the present, but he thought about the future. The people from the upper reaches didn't make a move, but allowed them to do it. The empires pushed each other aside because they didn't want to fight with the people from Yandian. Whoever rushed out first would definitely be the one to die the most. Then what should we do? Are we just going to keep waiting like this? Prince Chishui asked, somewhat unwilling to give up. Of course not. The governor of Chishui province said, "I've sent a letter to the other 3 countries in the name of the upstream forces, telling them to each send out troop. When the time comes, the 4 countries will mobilize their troops at the same time and attack the Xianyuan Empire in one fell swoop, directly dividing their territory." Hearing this, Prince Chishui and the 3rd princess were excited. "Father, is there anything you need us to do? Please give me your orders." The governor of Chishui province laughed and waved his hand. "Just you wait. When the time comes, all of you will be there." "Yes." The 2 of them replied in unison. Seeing their imperial father walk out, they followed him. On a branch in the palace, the fire phoenix, who had shrunk into a small bird, was standing on a branch. She heard their conversation and watched them leave. Then, she flapped her wings and left, preparing to report back to Fengjiu. In a small forest on the outskirts of Chishui Imperial City, Fengjiu and the others set up camp and rested. Tun Yin lay beside Fengjiu with half-closed eyes, while Lao Bai had shrunk into a small white snake and was sleeping on a branch. Chapter 17-19. Seeing the fire phoenix fly back, Fengjiu reached out her hand and let the fire phoenix land in her hand. "How is it? Did you hear anything?" she asked softly. The fire phoenix flapped its wings and said, "Yes, the old man from Chishui province said that he wants to join forces with a few other countries to attack the Xianyuan Empire." It told Fengjiu everything it heard in the palace and waited for her next order. Hearing the fire phoenix's words, Fengjiu curled the corners of her lips and revealed a cold smile. This old man was indeed wishful thinking. Since he wasn't afraid of death, she would start with him. She ordered everyone to hide first and sent the fire phoenix to the palace to keep an eye on them. The others waited for Guanxilin and Du Fan's teams to arrive. They waited for 2 days. 2 days later, in the evening, Guanxilin and Du Fan led their teams to a small forest. When the phoenix guard who was watching them saw them, he brought them to Fengjiu. When Guanxilin saw Fengjiu, he strode forward and asked with a smile, "Xiaojiu, when did you guys arrive? We flew the whole way here. I didn't expect to be later than you guys." "Master." Du Fan, Feng Wei, and the others bowed respectfully. Fengjiu glanced at them and smiled. We arrived 2 days earlier than you guys. Did everything go well? Nothing happened on the way, it was good. They smiled and said. Feng Jiu nodded. Let's all rest for a while. I will tell you guys what happened next. Thus, everyone sat down around the fire under the tree and looked at him, waiting for his next words. Since everyone is here, I plan to make a move tomorrow night. We don't need to make a big move, mainly an assassination. As long as the person in power in Qishui province is dead, then Qishui province will be in a state of disunity. At that time, they won't even be able to take care of themselves, so they won't have time to deal with the Xianyuan Empire. After that, Feng Jiu explained the details of the plan to them and asked, Do you guys remember everything? We'll remember. Everyone responded in a loud and powerful voice. Very good. Let's take the time to rest after eating something. She gestured for Leng Hua and Leng Shuang to distribute the roasted meat to everyone. She got up and walked around. Seeing this, Guan Shilin followed her and said, Xiao Jiu, did you tell Mo Zhe that we're here? Feng Jiu looked back and smiled. He probably only knows that we're in the 8 great empires, but he doesn't know that we're in Qishui province. She wanted to give him a surprise and help him solve this potential problem. Guan Shilin shook his head and smiled. Then he's probably worried now. He doesn't know that you're already at the peak of the sage, immortal realm. I think he probably thinks that you're at the peak of the fairy realm. Hearing this, Feng Jiu smiled. He'll receive the news soon. Once she killed the monarch of Qishui province and destroyed half of his forces in the imperial city, he would naturally receive the news. Moreover, he wouldn't be the only one who would know. The people from the other countries would know as well. When that time came, they would be nervous and on guard. After all, the monarch of Qishui province was a cultivator at the mid-stage of the fairy realm. Chapter 1720. The next day, at night, Feng Jiu and Guan Shilin led a group of people and sneaked into the palace. The others were led by Luo Yu and the others to make other arrangements. They entered through the side door of the palace. After taking care of the guards, they let the Phoenix guards replace them to guard the room while the others went inside. After half a year of training, the Phoenix guards' skills and ability to hide their presence were top-notch. They hid in the dark, and even though there were many guards in the palace, they were unable to discover them. The Fire Phoenix, who had been waiting in the palace for a long time, knew of their arrival and flew over. The Lord of Qishui province is in the palace in front. Follow me. As it spoke, it led the way for them. Fire Phoenix, have you done what I asked you to do? Feng Jiu asked in a low voice. It's been done since this morning. The effects of the medicine should be taking effect soon. The Fire Phoenix turned around and said. She had asked it to put a colorless and odorless medicine in the water so that the cultivator's spiritual energy would dissipate without them noticing. Calculating the time, the medicine should be taking effect soon. Very good. Feng Jiu revealed a satisfied smile. This way, it would be effortless. The Lord of Qishui province, who did not know that danger was approaching, was currently hugging a voluptuous and beautiful concubine in the palace. He was touching her up and down, causing her to pant. My lord, don't. You're still reading the memorials. A voluptuous woman dressed in a lotus-colored chiffon dress had a delicate and charming appearance. She sat on the Qishui monarch's lap with one hand around his neck and the other half covering the chiffon in front of her chest, covering half of her exposed body. Her slender waist swayed slightly, and a pair of slender white legs were faintly discernible under the chiffon dress. She was half unwilling, half angry, and half bashful, and her beautiful eyes were filled with a seductive charm. No memorials can compare to you, my beloved concubine. Come, let me kiss you. The Lord of Qishui province touched her buttocks with one hand and used the other to pull away the hand covering her chest. He then lowered his head and buried his face in her voluptuous bosom. Ah, your majesty, her coquettish voice was infinitely captivating. The beautiful eyes of the well-developed beauty in his arms, her enchanting body, and the soft, smooth, and plump feeling all made his heart ripple. He only felt the evil fire rising, and he immediately carried her to the big bed inside. He tossed the woman in his arms onto the bed, tore off his clothes, and pounced on her. However, At this moment, a long sword emitting a cold glint appeared silently and rested on the monarch's neck. What a good mood. A mocking voice rang out in the room, sounding very strange. That voice startled the lord of Chishui province. It was as if a basin of cold water had been poured over his head, extinguishing the evil fire in his body. All that was left was fear. Who was it? Who was it that could appear in his palace so noiselessly? Who was it? Who was it that dared to place a sword on his neck as if there was no one else around? Moreover, he actually didn't notice the arrival of others at all. To be able to go undetected, could this person's cultivation be higher than his? Thinking of this, he couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat, especially in such an embarrassing situation. Chapter 17:21. He watched as the concubine beneath him died with her eyes wide open. The lord of Chishui province was terrified. Who are you?" He turned his head, and when he saw the person holding the sword behind him, the first thing that flashed across his eyes was surprise. That person was dressed in a dazzling red robe and exuded an ethereal aura. That androgynous face had a devilish charm to it. Faintly, the lord of Chishui seemed to see the red-robed person raise her eyebrows and curl her lips slightly as she looked at him with a smile that was not a smile. "Do you recognize who I am?" Fengjiu asked. She pressed down harder on the long sword and slashed a wound on the lord of Chishui province's neck, causing a trace of blood to seep out. The piercing pain caused the lord of Chishui province to come back to his senses. Looking at the person in front of him, a thought flashed through his mind. You're Fengjiu." It was said that Fengjiu had a peerless appearance, liked to dress in red, and wielded the Qingfeng sword. The person in front of him was dressed in red and had a peerless appearance. The sword pressed against his neck was the Qingfeng sword. If it was not Fengjiu, who else could it be? That's right. Since you recognize me, then you can die. Fengjiu curled her lips into a smile, and a cold light flashed across her eyes. She turned the tip of her sword and instantly pierced into his dantian. Hiss! At the last moment, the lord of Chishui province wanted to take a gamble. Unexpectedly, he was unable to circulate his spiritual aura. He originally wanted to dodge, but he was unable to do so. He took the full brunt of the sword. He only felt that the Qingfeng sword had pierced through his dantian and destroyed his life force. He wanted to use his nascent soul to escape, but he could not do so. His body stiffened as he stared at her. His heart was filled with hatred and unwillingness. He was unwilling to die just like that. However, he swallowed his last breath and fell straight to the ground. Fengjiu pulled back her sword and looked at the lord of Chishui province who had died with his eyes wide open. She sneered. "Don't worry. Your son and daughter will accompany you very soon." She turned around and walked out. She ordered, "Take his corpse and hang it at the entrance of the palace." Yes. 2 phoenix guards flashed in from the darkness and dragged the corpse out. When Guanxilin, who was standing guard outside, saw her come out, he said, "The 2 fairy realm cultivators hiding in the dark have been dealt with. We can go to Prince Chishui now." "And let's go," she replied, and led them to their next destination. Prince Chishui was practicing martial arts in the training field. Ever since he was humiliated in the Xianyuan Empire, he had been working hard to improve his strength and cultivation. Seeing that the Xianyuan Empire was about to be destroyed, he was extremely excited. After destroying the Xianyuan Empire, he would trample on Xianyuan Mo's. As for the Fengjiu, who was rumored to be Xianyuan Mo's woman, he also wanted to find her, imprisoning her and making her his slave. Bang, bang, bang. After a series of kicks, the 8 shadow guards fell down one by one. They groaned and couldn't stand up for a long time. "Useless. The 8 of you are useless." Prince Chishui flung his sleeves. His sharp eyes swept across the 8 people on the ground. "Stand up and continue." The 8 shadow guards supported each other and stood up. They felt that the spiritual energy in their bodies was draining away. They were somewhat frightened. "Your Highness, our bodies seem to be a little strange." "Yes, me too. It seems that I can't use my spiritual energy." Another person said. "That's right. It's the same for me." Another person nodded. "Chi." Chapter 17:22. Maybe you're just lucky that you haven't drunk the water in the palace yet. A voice came just like that, startling everyone and causing them to turn around. When Prince Chishui heard that voice, his heart trembled. He looked at the figure in red walking out of the darkness in disbelief and cried out in a low voice, "Fengjiu, you actually came to our Red Water Palace. How dare you?" After recovering from his shock, Prince Chishui stared at the red figure with a strong desire to possess her. "You came at the right time. The crown prince was just thinking about you." He sneered sinisterly and glanced at Guan Shilin, who was following her, and the dozen people behind her. "How dare you come to my Red Water Palace with such a small number of people? Fengjiu, you're too arrogant. Today, I'll make sure that none of you can escape. Do it, except for the one in red, kill the rest on the spot." However, as soon as he finished speaking, he didn't see any movement. Only Fengjiu's chuckle could be heard as he slowly walked over. He angrily looked back and shouted, "What are you waiting for? Didn't you hear me?" Halfway through his words, his voice suddenly stopped because the secret guards were training with him all fell to the ground with pale faces. Their foreheads were covered with cold sweat, but none of them could move. At this moment, he thought of what they had said before and what Fengjiu had said. Thinking that she was proficient in medicine, he couldn't help but feel shocked. He angrily glared at her. "You drugged them? TSK, TSK, TSK. You only realized it now?" Fengjiu shook his head and stopped walking. "Brother, this person is for you to practice." "Okay," Guan Shilin responded in a deep voice. He strode forward and rushed out like a tiger. He waved his fist and fiercely hit Prince Chishui with a sharp wind blade. A powerful pressure came, causing the Chishui crown prince to be startled. He quickly became vigilant. He raised the spirit energy in his body, wanting to receive the punch. Who would have thought that the moment his spirit energy collided with the opponent's profound energy, the two streams of energy bounced off each other. His spirit energy was devoured, and the profound energy closed in, sending him flying. Bang! Ah! That punch landed heavily on his chest with a bang. Profound energy spread out in his body, and in that instant, it was as if his internal organs were covered by the aura of profound energy. Then, cracking sounds could be heard. Hiss! Ah! A miserable shriek rang out. Just a single punch had injured his internal organs, making it so that he could no longer stand up. Just a single punch had destroyed his dantian, causing him to lie on the ground like a cripple, unable to resist at all. Guan Shilin waved his hand and snorted. "Prince Chishui, that's all there is to it." Fengjiu's lips curled into a smile. "That's all there is to it." Being ridiculed in front of his face, Prince Chishui was ashamed and angry, but his heart was also overwhelmed with shock. He was no match for them. Moreover, he was crippled with one punch. Looking at them, they definitely wouldn't let him go just like that. At that moment, he couldn't stand up from the ground. As he retreated, he gritted his teeth and crushed the jade token that his imperial father had given him. As long as the jade token was crushed, his imperial father would know. At that time, these people would be doomed. Chapter 17:23. That person who was naked from head to toe, with only a pair of bright yellow underwear. Who else could it be other than their monarch? "Monarch, monarch," one of the secret guards muttered. His entire body was in a state of panic. "Just you wait. My royal father will be here soon. Once my royal father arrives, none of you will be able to escape." Prince Chishui forcefully endured the intense pain in his body, his face deathly pale as he threatened. Fengjiu and Guan Shilin both stood there and looked at him. They did not stop him from crushing the jade pendant to ask for help, because they had already dealt with the people in the palace, and some of the people hiding in the shadows. What use would the remaining guards be? Even the monarch was dead, and he wanted to ask for help? Haha, then there would still need to be someone to save him. Your Highness, the monarch is over there." One of the secret guards trembled as he pointed behind Fengjiu, pointing at the two phoenix guards standing in the darkness, dragging a person in their hands. Prince Chishui looked in the direction he was pointing at, and when he saw it, he was shocked, You killed my royal father. How is this possible? How is this possible? That's right. I killed him, and it just so happened that your royal father was having sex with a concubine, so I stabbed him with my sword, and he died just like that, without any effort at all. Fengjiu said casually, looking at his frightened face, and laughed. Do you still have anyone to ask for help? I don't mind killing the person who will save you in the future. You demon. You. He cursed loudly, wanting to escape, but found that he could not escape at all. His golden core was shattered, his internal organs were damaged, and with Fengjiu and the others watching, how could he escape? Demon? Ha! She sneered and looked at him. You didn't want to live a good life, but you had to go against us, and ended up like this. Who do you blame? If you want to blame someone, blame the person who was your backer. Guan Shilin strode forward and grabbed Prince Qishu. Don't talk nonsense with him, just kill him. As he spoke, he raised his hand and slapped Prince Qishu on the top of his head. No, don't die, however. With a bang, blood flowed out of his 7 orifices and his eyes were wide open. With that slap, his life force was cut off and he fell limply to the ground. Even in death, his eyes were still wide open. Take him away. Guan Shilin threw the Qishu crown prince's corpse to the Phoenix Guards. There's one of us, Fengjiu's eyes as he turned and left. To the palace. An hour later, the palace was on fire, and the fire was out of control, shocking the people inside and outside the city. When they rushed to the palace gate, they were shocked again. There were 3 corpses hanging at the gate of the palace, and those 3 corpses were none other than the governor of Qishu province, Prince Qishu, and the most beloved 3rd young master of Qishu province. For a moment, the entire Qishu empire was shaken. On this night, no one escaped from the palace alive, and all the treasures in the palace, whether it was spiritual medicine or precious treasures, were all taken away. The Qishu empire was too chaotic, and the governor of Qishu province was dead, and the others took the opportunity to seize power. Therefore, the entire Qishu empire quickly fell into a crisis of power struggle. Chapter 1724. When Xinyuan Mose received the news, it was already a few days later. In the Xinyuan palace, he stood with his hands behind his back and looked at the sky outside. He sighed inwardly. No wonder she didn't come when he was waiting for her here. She went to the Qishu empire. She was too reckless. After standing in the palace for a while, he called out, Huilang, Master. Huilang walked in from outside and bowed to him. He asked with a grin, Master, what are your orders? Xinyuan Mose glanced at Huilang, who was grinning foolishly. The corner of his mouth twitched imperceptibly. He looked away and said in a deep voice, Take a group of people to help Fengjiu. Huilang was stunned. Go where? Master, do you know which empire the ghost doctor will target next? Of the 3 remaining empires, which one do you think she will attack first? He looked at the sky outside with deep eyes. Huilang thought for a while and said, Eastern Glory Empire is the strongest among the 3 remaining empires. I think the ghost doctor will stay until the end. As for the other 2, one is farther away from Qishu province, and the other is closer to Qishu. Therefore, I think the ghost doctor will destroy the empire closer to Qishu. Is that so? Hearing this, Huilang was surprised and asked, Isn't it so? Did his master think that the ghost doctor wouldn't attack the empire closer to her? Take a group of people and wait for her in Eastern Glory Empire. He ordered in a deep voice. Huilang was stunned, but didn't ask any more questions. He respectfully replied, Yes. Since his master said so, he would do as he was told. Therefore, he bowed and retreated. After transferring a team of people, he informed Ing Yi and headed for the Eastern Glory Empire. In the pitch-black night, Tianshan Mountain was covered in white. Under the reflection of the white snow, the light became clearer. On the summit of Heaven Mountain, the white-robed elder of heavenly secrets stood with his hands behind his back. He gazed at the dazzling stars in the night sky, sighing in amazement as he murmured, as expected of the Phoenix Star. She was actually able to easily resolve a heaven-defying tribulation. Truly inconceivable, truly inconceivable. Master, Emo-chun, who was also dressed in white, walked over and stood behind him. Emo-chun, go to her side. She will be the one to break through your life and death tribulation. He turned around and looked at Emo-chun as he spoke. Upon hearing this, Emo-chun was slightly startled. He asked, "Didn't Shirzuen say that I would only be allowed to leave the mountain after she had broken through her own heaven-defying tribulation? Could it be that she has already cracked it?" It had only been half a year, but he had heard that the Phoenix dynasty had been destroyed. That night, the fire had burned everything in the Phoenix Imperial Palace. Even the old Master Feng and his wife had perished in the flames. Furthermore, the old Master Feng's youngest son had become food in the stomach of a ferocious beast. As for Fengjiu, she had taken her parents and the remaining Phoenix guards to a faraway place. For half a year, there had been no news of her at all. It was as if she had disappeared from the world. During this period of time, even the Xinyuan Empire was under attack from many sides and was in a state of turmoil. The war between the 8 empires seemed to be on the verge of breaking out at any moment. Even the cultivators in various places could feel the atmosphere of mutual hostility. At this time, his master had suddenly asked him to leave the mountain. Could it be that she was about to appear? Chapter 1725. As Elder Tianji spoke, he stroked his beard and looked at the dazzling star in the sky. Do you see it? The star of the Phoenix has appeared again, and it's even brighter than before. Master is certain that the heaven-defying tribulation on her should have been dissolved by her own hands. Master, then are her grandfather and the others really dead? Emo-chun couldn't help but ask. Life and death, death and life. Life is death, death is life. Go down the mountain. He strode away and walked back. Step by step, he stepped on the snow without leaving a trace, leaving only his faint voice echoing under the starry sky. Emo-chun watched as his figure gradually disappeared into the distance. Only when it disappeared did he retract his gaze and look at the dazzling star in the night sky. After a long while, he walked into the courtyard and prepared to pack his things and go down the mountain early tomorrow morning. On the other side, in the upper reaches of the continent in the courtyard, Sushi supported the pale Feng Sanyuan as they walked around, basking in the sun. After walking for a while, she helped him lie down on the bed in the courtyard. Be careful, Sushi said as she covered him with a thin blanket. I wonder how a year is now. I wonder if Feng girl has found him. Half a year has passed. Are they well? Feng Sanyuan said slowly, his voice weak. Half a year ago, when he closed his eyes in the great fire, he thought he wouldn't be able to live. He didn't expect that when he opened his eyes again, he would still be able to see this world and his wife. What he didn't expect was that the person who saved them would be someone he didn't expect, Morong Ishian. Didn't young Master Morong say that there are upper reaches of the upper reaches of the continent? Right now, there are upstream powers watching them. Little Nine and the others should have already hidden themselves. No news is good news for us. At least we know that they are safe. Sue, she said softly, comforting him softly. Even though she was also worried, she knew that it was useless to worry. Right now, they weren't in the 8 great empires, nor were they in the Phoenix dynasty. They were in the upper reaches of the continent, a continent that they would never have thought they would come to. Back then, the person who saved them in the Great Fire was actually the Prince of Glorious Sun Country's Morong royal family, Morong Ishian. A person that she had only heard of but never expected to see had appeared just like that to save them. Later on, he said that the palace that was on fire that day was his original palace, and there was a secret passage inside. He thought of going in through the secret passage to take a look when he was passing by the Phoenix dynasty. He didn't expect that he would save them by accident. Master, Madam, young Master is here. A maidservant serving in the courtyard came in to report, and then retreated. Hearing this, the couple looked at each other, thinking that they had to ask around this time to see if there was any news about Fengjiu recently. After all, the last time Morong Ishuan came over, he also brought news, but it was not good news. Although they were in the upper reaches of the continent, through Murong Yixian, they also knew that the Phoenix dynasty had been destroyed. It was also because they knew how powerful the enemy was that they were quietly recuperating here and didn't rush back impulsively. They were afraid that something like this would happen again and make them worry. But even so, they felt that every day was like a year in this place. Chapter 17:26. He wore a simple white robe, and his black hair was tied up with a jade crown. He wore a jade pendant and a white jade flute at his waist. His steps were slow and steady. Following behind him was a black-clothed guard. Grandpa Feng, old madam. Murong Yixian bowed to the two as he entered the courtyard. "Have a seat." The old man gestured. Looking at the elegant young master in white, he sighed in his heart. Back then, after the Phoenix dynasty was established, he disappeared without a trace. It was as if he had disappeared without a trace. Who would have thought that in the end, they would meet again under such circumstances, and he was even the one who saved them. Thinking back, he also thought highly of him and Xiao Jiao as a couple. Unfortunately, all right. Murong Yixian nodded and sat down at the table. He looked at the two and asked gently, "Are you two feeling better? Have you taken your medicine on time?" Hearing this, Sushi said, "I've made young Master Murong worry. My injuries have healed. Sun Yuan's injuries were too severe. He hasn't gotten better even after recuperating for half a year. This is all my fault. I left the two of you here and rarely came to visit," he said apologetically. "Our lives were saved by you. We'll definitely repay this debt of gratitude in the future." Feng Sanyuan said. "Grandpa Feng, don't say that." He shook his head and said, "I've played with Qin Ge in the manor since I was young. I've always treated Grandpa Feng as my own grandfather. Although I couldn't stop the things that happened later, I know that I can't blame anyone else. Just like this time, I'm very happy to have accidentally saved Grandpa Feng and old madam." He looked at the two and smiled. "Actually, I've come this time because I have news to tell the two of you." The two of them looked at each other and asked, "Do you have news about Xiao Jiao?" Murong Yixian nodded and said, "Recently, I was ordered by my master to go down the mountain to handle some matters. I heard a piece of news, and I felt that this matter might be related to Fengjiu, so I came to tell you. Moreover, I sent a letter to Xianyuan Mo's to inform them of your whereabouts. It's been half a year, and those people aren't keeping a close eye on us anymore. Furthermore, I heard that an empire was recently destroyed overnight. I'm guessing that Fengjiu is behind this. I think that if the two of you want to go back, you should be able to take a look after your bodies have recovered." The two of them were surprised. "You're saying we can go back now?" He replied with a smile. "You can go back, but I hope that you can wait until your injuries have healed. That way, even if you encounter any trouble on the way, it can be solved." "All right, we got it." When they returned, they would first go to the Xianyuan Empire to look for Xianyuan Mo's. He should know where Fengjiu was. Moreover, as long as they asked him, they should be able to know if he was with them. Murong Yixian stood up and said, "I still have to return to the mountain to report. I'll take my leave now." "You won't stay for long, right? You're leaving already?" Feng Sanyuan asked as he looked at Murong Yixian. His heart was indescribably complicated. "No, I still have matters to attend to. I can't delay." He smiled and turned to leave. Chapter 17:27. Feng Sanyuan looked at the sky and said slowly, "This is unavoidable. The danger that should come will still come. The main thing is how we deal with it." Among the 8 great empires, the other 3 empires were also in a state of vigilance and fear, especially when they thought about the scene of the Qishu Empire's monarch dying naked and being hung at the entrance of the imperial city after his death. Even though they did not see it with their own eyes, every time they thought about it, they felt anxious and uneasy. The monarch of the Luoyue Empire, which was the closest to the Qishu Empire, was currently in the palace, asking the people he sent out to investigate. "It's been so many days. Haven't you found anything?" The person kneeling in the palace did not dare to raise his head and said, "Monarch, there are no clues in Qishu province. We don't know who did it." The crown prince of the Xianyuan Empire, Xianyuan Mose, has always been in the Empire and has never left. The Yin Palace's forces are guarding the Xianyuan Empire tightly. It's not the Yin Palace's people who did it. Hearing this, the monarch of the Luoyue Empire's monarch did not feel relieved. If it was not Xianyuan Mose who did it, then who could it be? He could definitely conclude that this force was helping the Xianyuan Empire. Otherwise, they would not have attacked the Qishui Empire at this time. The monarch of Qishui Province, who was a fairy realm expert, was killed without anyone knowing. Every time he thought about this, he could not sleep well. Would there be a person standing beside his bed one night who wanted to take his life? Useless things. Leave. He waved his hand and shouted anxiously. The people kneeling in the main hall could only respond respectfully and then leave. The monarch of the Luoyue Empire paced back and forth in the palace. Not long after, he shouted again, "Men, monarch!" 2 people came in and bowed respectfully. Add another patrol team. Don't let even a mosquito into the palace. The monarch of the Luoyue Empire ordered. Yes. The 2 men left and gave the order to add another patrol team to the palace. This was the 3rd time the monarch had issued such an order. One could only imagine how anxious the monarch was right now. In the Dongyao Empire, although the people sent out didn't find anything, the emperor of the Dongyao Empire wrote down the names of many possible culprits on a piece of paper and checked them himself. Finally, he circled the name Fengjiu. Looking at that name, a chilling, killing intent flashed across the Dongyao monarch's gloomy eyes. Apart from this Fengjiu, who else among the 8 great empires and the forces of the lower continents would risk offending them and the forces of the upper continents to help Xianyuan Mose? I just didn't expect that after being silent for half a year, when everyone thought that Fengjiu had gone into hiding in fear, she would appear again. He muttered in a low voice, his voice filled with viciousness. "Since you dare to appear again, then this time, I must take your head and present it to the people above. Since the higher-ups want her head, then he would take her head and give it to them, give her head as a gift." This Fengjiu was known as the Ghost Doctor. It was said that she was extremely famous in the 1st to 9th grade countries. How famous could she be? She was just a woman who knew a little about medicine. A little girl who had never seen the world dared to call herself the Ghost Doctor and said that she had medical skills that could bring the dead back to life. She even dared to offend the higher-ups. How arrogant! Chapter 1728. However, at this moment, he would never know, nor would he believe, that not long after, this woman whom he looked down upon would personally end his life. Under Xianyuan Mose's orders, Huilang had arrived at the Eastern Glory Empire's imperial city ahead of everyone else. He sat on a tree and sighed. The Ghost Doctor will come here? Master didn't even get the slightest bit of news and made us come here to wait. What if we waited for nothing? Boss, maybe the Ghost Doctor will really come here. Master's words shouldn't be wrong. A man in black beside him said, "That's because you don't know. Master is purely guessing." Huilang rolled his eyes at him and said, "I was still thinking that if I could meet the Ghost Doctor, I could kill to my heart's content with her. If not, we can only wait here." As he spoke, he didn't wait for the man in black to speak and continued. "Moreover, I feel that if I were the Ghost Doctor, I would first attack the Luoyue Empire. Why would I go around and attack Eastern Glory Empire first? Boss, didn't you always say that the Ghost Doctor isn't an ordinary person? Maybe she's different from what we think." The man in black said, "Go away." He waved his hand. "When I said that she's not an ordinary person, I meant that she's a little perverted. Her way of thinking and doing things is different from normal people. You're the perverted one." Suddenly, a voice sounded, scaring Huilang. He fell from the tree, and after steadying himself, he shouted, "Who is it?" On the branch, the fire phoenix flapped her wings and flew up. "You wolf, why didn't you stay put? What are you doing here? You even said that Xiao Jio is a pervert? You're in trouble." As she spoke, the fire phoenix flapped her wings and flew back. When Huilang heard this and recognized that the little bird was the fire phoenix, he was instantly delighted. "Fire phoenix, You bastard. Why didn't you say anything when you came? Since you're here, does that mean the ghost doctor is here too? She's really here? Ha ha. When the men in black heard this, they were alarmed and startled. That little bird was the ghost doctor's ancient mythical beast, the fire phoenix? Boss, it seems to be saying that it wants to report to the ghost doctor. A man in black whispered. Hui Lang was startled and hurriedly chased after it. Fire phoenix, don't get agitated. Come. We haven't seen each other for a long time. Let's have a good chat. What's there to talk about with a wolf like you? The fire phoenix snorted, flapped its wings, and flew forward. Grey Wolf asked the people behind him to stay where they were and followed them. Soon, he saw Feng Nine and the others resting about 500 meters away. Ghost Doctor, Seeing that it was Hui Lang, the Fengjiu was also startled. Your master sent you here? He actually knew that she was coming to Dong Yao. Yes, Master asked me to come and help you. Ghost Doctor, you don't know this, but Master has been waiting for you to go to the Xianyuan Empire. Who knew that you destroyed the governor of Qishui province? He's very worried about you, so he sent me here. That you're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.